Disc 4.
It was bought the week after Jadis was killed. Its MOT was paid for in cash at a garage in Bethnal Green just last week, and the brake pads and rear wiper needed doing. It came to 430 quid. Where did you get that cash, Jasmine? Give me 90 seconds with that garage man and he'll tell me you didn't pay for the service. He'll tell me who did, and they'll give me a convincing story about where the money came from, maybe the dogs. And I might not get so far, but pretty soon you'll be more trouble than you're worth, just like Jadis was. You used to be so kind to me. Jasmine's voice cracks. You're hiding the man who killed Jadis. He's on remand in Pentonville. His name is D.S. Pulford. In that case, whatever you tell me will just help prove that. All you care about's getting your man off the hook. You better get someone to look after Millie. She's only just gone down. You can't do this. I'll have a WPC come for you. We'll probably have to detain you overnight. Jasmine and Staffe each looked disappointed with the other. They always were quite fond, but Jadis did what he did and Staffe is what he is. No matter how hard you try, sometimes people are just too different. Staffe says, You can take a better road, Jasmine. No one will ever know it came from you. All I need is the name. And he can tell by the way she sets her jaw that she is lost. You will be absolutely immune, I promise you. She crosses her arms, and as she looks at him, her expression changes slowly, until her eyes have narrowed and her lip has curled to the point where, indisputably, she hates him. Her decision is made. On his way down the stairwell, he gets glimpses of the Attlee estate just a few hundred yards away. He will call on Sean Hadaway, see how he or his father paid for the Range Rover. Josie can check out the garage who MOT'd it. They will squeeze everyone around the E-gang, see what oozes out. First, he waits for the WPC to collect Jasmine cash, but 20 minutes later he's still waiting. So he calls Jombo to check where she is. Jombo's voice falters. They're not coming, Will. Pennington has said you're to lay off Jasmine cash. Says there's no way in the world he can let you question her in custody. She could be harbouring the man who killed Golding. She could be about to send Pulford away, for God's sake. You're going to have to find another way. And when you come in, he wants to see you. In the Lime Kilns quadrangle, a gang of teenagers slouch in a circle on their iPhones. But when they see Staffe, they galvanise, start moving. I'll be in later, John. He clicks off. The youths all wear baseball caps and their hoods pulled up, and he recognises one from the visitor centre at Pentonville the other day. Staffe takes a deep breath and walks up to the youth, his nerves twitching and his heart racing. Every now and again he feels a flutter at the top of his stomach. With the young ones, you never know. They don't always know the score. He bends down, whispers to Louis, Got your name, Considine. I've got your number too. Louis looks afraid. His face is swollen, yellowing, and his mouth is cut and tender. He says, You're a fucking nutter, man. Fucking muppet, says one of the others. They're all underage and full of themselves, valuable to their elders in the light of the reduced tariffs their crimes attract. Staffe looks in their eyes and sees what they've got to enable them to hurt him the most. No hope. But Louis, he looks like he might be able to glimpse a different life, a better outcome. Staffe feels them watching him walk up to the Attlee. They follow him for a while, and then he loses track of them. But as he enters the estate, a low-rise affair with brightly coloured fascias to the decks, he knows for sure he's being followed by someone. It gives him the shivers, and he feels the eyes all the way up to Hadaway's floor. His heart pumps. Again he's sure he can hear steps behind him, but not a whole gang, maybe just one person. At the top of the stairs he's short of breath, and has a shooting pain in his chest, so he pauses. All he can hear, through the murmur of distant beats, is Louis and his mates laughing far away. Then they stop, and he makes his way along the concrete deck to Shaw and Hadaway's place. The Atlee is dead quiet now. Hadaway opens the door straight off. His eyes are heavy and his mouth hangs open. He smiles, clearly stoned, says, "You're the fucking pussy, man, am I right?" He takes a step back and puts his hands down the front of his shorn paws, suggesting he might be carrying. "Tell me about Jasmine Cash's Range Rover." "She got fucking wheels." "So fucking what?" "We know you bought it for her." "You know shit." "She got it 3 days after Jadis was shot. Is that the price of silence these days?" "Your sergeant fucking killed, Jay. Fucking execution, man. You're lucky there isn't more trouble on the streets." "I think it's time we brought you in. You want to call your brief?" "Fuck off. You're not even supposed to be here. See, we know more than you think. We see the whole picture like a map, like Google fucking Earth. That Range Rover of Jasmine's is ringed. Your boys have a history for ringing. Come back when you know it's fucking ringed. 'Cause you know what? It's fucking not. And if word's out you're harassing the friend of a man you executed, there'll be murders." Sean takes a step closer and beckons Staffe to him with the curl of the fingers of both hands. He has fat gold rings on every finger of his right hand. He smiles, sly, and looks past Staffe, who looks over his shoulder, sees the gang of boys from earlier, Louis, +4. Staffe's heart flutters fast and misses. A searing pain skewers his chest, and he must grimace because the gang snigger. He wants to clutch his chest, but resists, and the four from behind close in on him. Hadaway says, "Officer enters without warrant. We didn't fucking invite him in, he didn't show any ID. It could have been anybody. Stupid fucker comes without backup." "I'm just asking about Jasmine's car." "He is a copper," says Louis. "Maybe we shouldn't—" "Shouldn't what, Louis?" Hadaway goes up to Louis, hands behind his back. He's broader than Louis, and the back of his head is mapped with scars. Next to Hadaway, Louis is like an infant. Louis lowers his voice, but Staffe can just hear him when he says, "Just maybe we should talk to Brandon before we do anything to a copper." "You fucking muppet!" Hadaway slaps Louis across the face with the back of his right hand, and the big rings make 4 tram lines. Blood comes straight up to the surface of Louis's already broken face. Hadaway turns to Staffe. "You still want me to come to the station?" The pain shoots into Staffe's chest again, and Hadaway takes a step closer. This time Staffe can't help himself. His head sags, and he gulps for air, sinking to his knees. Hadaway lays his hands on Staffe and pushes him backwards, puts his foot on his chest, presses down with all his weight. "Leave him." "Who the fuck?" says Hadaway. "Leave him," says the man again, and it is a man, not a boy. Staffe looks up from the floor. In the doorway, Aby Myers' suede-headed minder. Hadaway moves back, and Louis and his mates disperse. Aby's man holds a telescopic steel in one hand. His other hand is knuckle-dusted with large, angular rings. Staffe sits up, the pain abating. "Mr. Myers wants a word. Lucky man." He has perfect teeth and luminescent blue eyes. He turns to Hadaway and says, "You help this gentleman to his feet." Hadaway thinks twice, evaluating his prospects. After a few seconds, he holds out a hand and Staffe takes it, pulls himself up, and they stand chest to chest. 1-on-1, he's not so sure if these days he could take Hadaway. On the way out, he says to himself, Brandon. 17. The Cavendish would be easy to underestimate, hunkered down in one of the city's groins, off the Tottenham Court Road. The lighting is dim, and Staffe glimpses a couple of women in long black dresses through a curtain beyond the small stage. But otherwise it's only men. Abe's minder offers the cashier the name Miles Hennigan, and leads Staffe to where Abe is sitting in on a blackjack game. He folds. Looking at the players, you can't tell who is winning, which suggests to Staffe that these are serious hands. "You seem to like your gambling," says Abe. His eyes are cloudy, but he has a kind face, with bushy brows and a strong jaw. He beckons Staffe, who draws up a chair. "I don't dabble." "But you like to watch." Abe taps his nose. "Taking a view from above." Staffe laughs. "I'll wager it wins next time out. Not quite at the races today." Abe laughs. "You have a job to do, Inspector. I appreciate that. But if I can help in any way, I'd rather you asked me straight. I have nothing to hide." "There'll be some direct questions if Carmelo Trapani dies." "Carmelo will die, of course, as will I. Even you, Inspector. I heard you were at the reading of the will. I wasn't invited. What do you make of that?" Abe looks around the table, raising his bushy brows. Within seconds, everyone in the hand folds, leaves the table, including the dealer. Abe lowers his voice. "Carmelo's idea of a joke is what it is." "It's a shame for poor Attilio. From what I can gather, he needs the money." "Poor Attilio doesn't need to worry. I know right from wrong." "Well, you already have horses with him, but that's not enough to keep him above water." "I will say this once, Inspector, because I am feeling generous. You can forget about casting aspersions on Attilio. Look closer to home." "Closer to Carmelo's home? Are you talking about Jacopo Sartori?" "You catch on quick, Inspector." "I can spot a secret when people climb up." "I didn't say anything about a secret," says Abe Myers, his eyes narrowing. "Do you want me to find Jacopo Sartori for you, Mr. Myers?" "I simply want my good friend Carmelo to be found." "Carmelo shifted his money around these last few weeks. He knew something was going to happen." Abe Myers beckons Staffe closer. "Me and Carmelo, we used to be tight. But this bequeathing came out of the blue. You shouldn't read anything into it, and it certainly won't help you find him. I guarantee it." "He had a stake in one of your investment trusts and pulled out not so long ago. Then he leaves you all his money, so you understand why I come to you." "It was I who brought you here. Good job for you that I did." "Every time I dig into Carmelo's past, something stops me. Attilio is tight-lipped, which I can understand. Jacopo is gone. No wives, not even Esther. A.B. Myers' eyes darken. "You've no business bringing my wife into this, Inspector. Watch your step." "Where is she, A.B.?" "The honest truth? I don't know. She left the house 40 years ago without saying a word. She didn't take a penny, or even so much as a toothbrush. Once, a couple of years after, she let me know she was safe. I pray for her every day. Now, Jacopo Sartori, Inspector. He's the one you need, don't doubt it." A.B. Myers stands, stiff-limbed, but he somehow cuts an imposing figure. As he walks slowly across the casino, people turn, smile benignly, and one of the women comes from behind the curtain, skirts around the stage to take his arm, lead him into a room. Miles Hennigan reappears, says to Staffe, "I'll show you out." At the door he says, "Try Brighton." "To find Jacopo?" says Staffe, turning. But Miles closes the door, smiles through the glass as if he knows something the inspector doesn't, and something in the empty, mercenary eyes that accompany his smile gives Staffe the chills. Staffe walks through Bloomsbury's tidy Georgian squares into studiously dishevelled Clerkenwell. When he reaches Ledengate, he asks Jumbo to send Brighton and Hove CID a copy of the photograph of Jacopo Sartori. As soon as he gets to his office, he puts a hand to his heart, feels the memory of what happened on the Atlee, and he calls Janine up at City Royal to see if there was someone she knows who can give him a quick once-over. "What's happened, Will?" "Nothing." "Is it your wounds again?" "No, just a pain I had." "In your chest?" "I don't want to fuss." Janine says she'll make a call. A friend of hers is a chest specialist, and she thinks he's working tonight. "Thanks, but keep this to yourself." He hangs up, looks out on the quiet city, and feels his way along the threads Carmelo Trapani has left for him to weave. Ever since he disappeared, the old man has been whispering into the void he left behind, shifting his money and squeezing out Attilio, deserting Anthony Goldman and urging him on in the direction of A.B. Myers. And now, all points seem to want to lead him to Jacopo Sartori. But are A.B. and Jacopo in cahoots, sending him on a goose chase? And what of the long-missing Esther Myers, never actually reported missing? Rimmer is in the incident room, tapping away at his computer keyboard. His desk is clear, and he sits with his back to the window. They are the only ones in. "Where is everyone?" says Staffe. "There's a black alert, some trouble up Hackney." "Damn!" Staffe knows that any tension on the streets will be bad for Pulford. Over Rimmer's shoulder, the city's glass peaks twinkle in the night. He needs to get on with the business of tracking down Brandon Latimer, but also needs to get to Brighton and to try to find Esther Myers. He says to Rimmer, "We really could do with tracking down A.B. Myers' wife. She left him 40 years ago." "I know. You're not sending me off on a wild goose chase, are you, Staffe?" "If I was, would I tell you?" He laughs, but he feels a stitch, puts his hand to his chest. "You all right, Staffe?" "I'm fine," he grimaces. "I just need to prioritize. Pulford is innocent, and I can't do everything. Your loyalties are in the right place, aren't they, Rimmer?" "There is a bigger picture here." "No, there's not," says Staffe, leaving. In the corridor he sees Josie coming out of his office, and she says, "Your phone was going. It's Janine up at City Royal. She says you're to see a Dr. Welbeck at 10 tonight. What's going on, sir?" "Nothing. Call her back and say I can't make it." "What are you seeing a doctor about?" "Tell me about Brandon. That lad Louis Considine mentioned his name tonight. You're not supposed to— Just tell me. Well, there's nothing to tell. Like I said to you before, he's clean. We've no life connections to him. He's like a ghost. Yet Pulford was on his case. He was calling him. Do you still have a key to Pulford's place? Josie nods. Come on, let's go over there. You should see that doctor. Josie looked at him disapprovingly. I can go to Pulford's on my own. Rimmer pokes his head into the corridor, calls to Staffe. You'd better come in. Smet's just sent something over from the Met. They got a CCTV match on Carmelo's car from the night he was taken. Staffe and Josie go into Rimmer's office, and the three of them look at the screen, watch the Daimler pull up to a set of lights. Text in the top right tells them it is Brompton Road, looking east. The image in the car is vague, and the driver wears a hat and a big coat. A figure sits in the back, and the driver turns to talk to the passenger. They're travelling west out of London, the way I'd go home if I lived in Ockingham, says Rimmer. But wait. He clicks the mouse twice, and brings up a new image of the same car at a set of lights. Tibbott's Corner, says the text, facing west. This time they see into the rear of the car. There is no glare on the rear window now, and the image is clear enough for them all to say as one, Carmelo Trapani. What time was this? Says Staffe. 6 minutes past 10, says Rimmer. And he's still alive. They didn't kill him at Beaver Place. They're taking him somewhere to persuade him to do something, says Staffe. Or dissuade him from doing something, says Josie. Maybe the money he was moving around. Who the hell's driving? Says Rimmer. You can't tell. Send it to the techies. We should pay Attilio another visit, though, says Staffe. Carmelo's car was going that way. I'll do it. I'm on that track, says Rimmer. Staffe turns to Josie, winks at her and says to Rimmer, Can we do it together? You take the lead, naturally. Rimmer looks bemused and more than a little delighted. As they leave, Josie whispers, I'll do Pulford's place. Look for anything at all to do with the E-Gang, and especially Brandon Latimer, says Staffe. And for some reason, he's suddenly touched by the realization that evidence can incriminate as well as redeem. 18. Ockingham Manor appears to have retired early for the evening, with just a solitary orange glow from an upstairs room. There are 3 cars in the driveway. Attilio's Range Rover Sport, a workhorse Land Cruiser, and a yellow Porsche Boxster that Staffe recognises. Rimmer parks up and says, Looks like they're in bed. I don't doubt it, says Staffe. How do you want to play this? We'll talk to Attilio and Helena separately to start with. You'll be lucky. We'll do this my way. We agreed. Rimmer rings the bell and they wait a while before Attilio opens up, saying, What the hell do you think you're up to? Calling unannounced at this hour. We have new information relating to your father, says Rimmer. I would like to talk to you. And E.I. Wagstaff here will ask your wife a few questions too. He won't. I'm afraid I insist, says Rimmer. She's not here, says Staffe. But we still need to talk about the night your father was taken. I was entertaining friends, you know that. Your father was still alive when you were entertaining your friends, says Rimmer. How do you know he's still alive? Says Attilio, standing to one side, showing the 2 policemen in, watching Staffe as he clocks a pair of slingback shoes in the doorway to the drawing-room. We didn't say he is Still alive. We said he was alive that night. After the reading of the will, surely you can't think I had anything to do with my father's abduction. I had nothing to gain. Money isn't the only motive, says Rimmer. It's late to be doing your books, says Staffe. What? Says Rimmer. Goldman and Son provide quite a service. Emma, Attilio calls up the stairs. When you've reconciled the balance sheet, you can go. Staffe says, Will A.B. Myers be pushing a bit more your way now he stands to benefit so? We have a small string of his horses, that's all, says Attilio. Rimmer takes out a notebook, says, I have some questions. I'll wait here, says Staffe, watching Rimmer follow Attilio into the drawing-room. Within a couple of minutes, Emma Thyssen-Wills appears at the top of the wood-panelled staircase. Her hair is dishevelled, and she pads down the stairs barefooted, even though she's wearing a cocktail dress that shows her fine legs off to their full. When she's near, Staffe says, I thought Anthony Goldman had released you. Oh, don't be clever, it doesn't suit. Let's go in the kitchen. Up close, her bruising has subsided a little and her tooth has been capped. There are pinpricks of perspiration above her broken top lip. Dark horse, he says. I've had a rough ride. He's a kind man, and I can help him. There's nothing to this, nothing at all. The rough ride, says Staffe. That wasn't him. Attilio couldn't hurt a fly. Your life hasn't exactly improved since his father disappeared. Emma touches the broken skin of her lip with the tip of her tongue. Staffe looks at her attaché case, says, Attilio can't look after you, but I can, and that's a promise. I don't need protecting, but I am very fond of Carmelo. He has a good heart. She opens her small case and pulls out 2 sheets of A4. This didn't come from me, she says, handing him the sheets. A balance sheet only paints a picture of a given day. With the Trapanis, you need a grasp of history. It all goes way back, and believe me, there are far too many given days for me to ever understand them. Staffe reads through the summary of Ockingham Stud's assets and liabilities, then its management accounts for the last quarter. The company's just about solvent, thanks to a handsome profit in the last month. Training fees were heavily reliant on Fard Jamud, but projections for the next quarter show these to be reduced to nil. This, however, is more than balanced by a vast increase in training income from A.B. Myers. In the balance sheet, the capital value of the stud attracts an accountant's note, referring to a contracted sale of the Ockingham stud to Blackfriars Holdings just weeks ago, resulting in an increased valuation from £750,000 to £2.75 million. Without this, the company would have lost £2 million. Staffe says, Blackfriars. I can find out with a few searches, but would you just save me half a day? As a taxpayer, shouldn't I want to see you putting your back into this investigation, Inspector? Her eyes crinkle. You want to improve the odds of me finding Carmelo alive? She nods. I bet Blackfriars Holdings is owned by Abraham Myers Trust. Save yourself a morning at Company's house. It's A.B. all right. You've got my back, haven't you? Do I need to? What do you think? Rimmer comes into the kitchen, says, I'm done. I'd like a word with Attilio. Pennington said this is my lead. I don't want you undermining my authority. Now, let's go. Outside, on the Ockingham gravel, Staffe says, "Was Carmelo brought here the night he died?" "No." Rimmer's jaw is set. "I'd still like to talk to Attilio." "No." Staffe steps back, says, "Are you all right, Rimmer?" "Can't you call me Frank? Can't you treat me as an equal, for crying out loud? Did he give you the impression his father came here that night?" "He did everything to give me the opposite impression. But Far Jamud was here. We'll ask him." "You think you can get Jamud to talk?" "I'm pretty sure he's been having an affair with Attilio's wife, Helena." "What? How the hell do you know that?" "I fancy a pint. There's a pub down the road called the Crooked Billet." "Well, it's almost closing," says Staffe. "I took the trouble to befriend the landlord. He has no time for the new lord of the manor, and a few whiskies down the line, his tongue loosened up. We're good for a late one." "Oh, my, Frank." "And you can tell me all about Miss Thisson Wills." Josie hasn't been in Pulford's flat since they remanded him for the murder of Jadis Golding. No one at Ledengate, Pennington included, had seriously considered the possibility of Pulford not getting bail. But they got that idiot Judge Hislop, who had clearly got a call from the Home Office. A young black man dead, a policeman suspected, an election round the corner. Pulford was on the ragged edge when Josie came here that last time. He had a stack of papers on his table. If only she knew where they are now, they might tell her who Pulford was trailing in those weeks before Jadis was murdered. But as she begins to take the flat to pieces, yard of carpet by length of floorboard, she prays it doesn't lead her all the way back here. Josie moves up to the loft, accessed from the bathroom. It's hot, and the small fibres from the insulation prick her skin. She works along the joists, checking in boxes and lifting up the insulation to see if anything is hidden, but finds only a few bundles of essays from university and Hendon. She sits on the edge of the loft hatch and looks down onto the old-fashioned Victorian toilet with its high cistern. The floorboards are stripped and all the nails are undisturbed. The only place he could hide something down there would be in the cistern. So she eases herself down, feeling for the chair with her pointed toe. It reminds her of doing ballet. She used to love those Saturday mornings before her mother became ill, before she realised what a bastard her father was. Josie lifts the lid, surprised how clean it is. She feels sad, thinking how Pulford must have done his housework, how happy he was to get this place after his struggle against the demons of gambling. Peering into the cistern, there is nothing inside. So she replaces the lid, climbs down, and braces herself for the worst part, reaching into the toilet. She runs her index and middle fingers under the rim of the bowl where the water feeds. It is dry, unsurprisingly, and she scrubs her hands vigorously in Pulford's lime-scaled basin. While she's here, she may as well have a pee, so she takes a seat and looks out into the hall. She dabs, pulls up her pants and straightens her skirt, then flushes and returns to the basin to wash her hands again. Leaving the bathroom, something seems absent, but she can't tell what it is. Josie peers down the hallway. Pulford's bedroom is one way, the open-plan living room the other. It is so tidy compared to the last time she was here. He was such a mess, yet it is pristine now. Then it strikes her. The flat is silent. Totally silent. There is no watery hum from the flush being pulled. And she looks back at his toilet, returns to pull the chain a second time. Then a third. Just the faintest trickle of water coming through where her fingers had been. Yet the cistern had been full before. She climbs back on the chair, steadying herself by gripping the long pipe that serves the toilet from the cistern. Sure enough, the cistern is full. The pipe clearly is obstructed. And now she sees where the join in the pipe is discoloured. A canny place to stuff something you once secreted. "19. Josie unfolds the papers which Pulford had rolled tightly, wrapped in cling film, and then taped up in a bin liner and stuffed into the downpipe to his toilet. The photocopies of the forensic reports are here, proving the gun which fired the bullet killing Jadis Golding had also been used to discharge 2 rounds into Staffe. There are also accounts of the meetings with Sean Hadaway and Brandon Latimer, who each have Stonewall alibis, having been at a rap concert in Manchester the night of Jadis's murder. And there is a copy of the official interview with Louis Considine, a juvenile. "Louis," says Josie to herself. Louis, of whom Pulford wrote in the margin, "Dodgy alibi," and "Check brother, Curtis." Amongst the papers is a photograph of Brandon, taken on a telephoto lens, judging from the depth of field. Brandon is leaning against his Cherokee Jeep, and with him is a woman Josie last met in the City Royal Morgue, Jasmine Cash. Jasmine and Brandon are embracing, to put it politely. Jasmine, the grieving mother of Jadis Golding's daughter, seemingly happy in the clutch of Jadis's friend and associate. Lastly, there is a handwritten printout of times and locations headed BL Tracker, which appears to describe the precise movements of Latimer for a week. From the evening before Jadis's murder until the day before Pulford was arrested on suspicion of Golding's murder. Josie knows for a fact that Pulford had neither sought nor obtained official sanction for the use of such a device. She calls Staffe. Judging by the choral music in the background, he is in Rimmer's car. "Pulford was on Brandon Latimer's case. I found the forensics report. A photograph of Brandon with Jasmine Cash." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. And there's an unauthorised tracker on Brandon, from before Jadis Golding was murdered and after too." "That could be good. Or not," says Staffe. "You mean he could have been baiting Brandon Latimer to get to Jadis?" "You can imagine what Latimer's lawyer would say." "And Louis Considine was on his radar. Seems Pulford thought his alibi for the night Jadis was killed wasn't quite waterproof." Josie picks up the photo of Brandon with Jasmine Cash, examines its back. "The photo of the best mate and the widow was printed at Jessop's on Tottenham Court Road 3 days before Jadis was killed." "So they were already together before Jadis was killed." "And Pulford mentions Louis's brother. I didn't know he had a brother, Curtis. What do we do with it all, sir? We're going to have to show it to Pennington sooner or later." "There's some due diligence first." He lowers his voice. "Before we go putting the wind up the DCI. He sounds distant, kind of lost, and Josie wishes he was here so they could work it out together. Staffe turns away from Rimmer, shields the phone, says, "Look after yourself, Josie." He hangs up and watches the road ahead shift, Rimmer's headlights panning across the crooked billet, with ivy growing up its half-timbered frontage. They pull into the car park, past a clutch of smoking locals who give them the evils as they park up. Rimmer introduces Staffe to Rodney, who clearly has mixed feelings about seeing Rimmer again, having had his tongue so liberally loosened the last time. But as they sit down in the snug, Staffe senses that Rodney cannot resist a swelling of pride at being visited by not one, but 2 police inspectors. Staffe looks across at the locals coming in from a smoke, and after a while says to Rodney, "Were these chaps have been in the night Carmelo disappeared?" "Bilbo's in every night, and Fran's a brainiac. It was quiz night. And who's the other fellow? Gavin's a lad at Trapani's yard. Rodney looks at his diary. It was Epsom, just down the road, so I'd say he was in. I'll have a quick word, if that's all right. Don't scare the horses, quips Rodney. Staffe explains to the three locals that he's up from London and investigating the disappearance of Attilio Trapani's father. And two of them look at him warily, but Fran, the mechanic, says, Has he got something to do with it then, that arrogant bastard? I used to work on the estate for Mr. Ballantyne. Now he was a gentleman. But at high time, my godmothers. The other two stand up, ready their fags, and Fran says, Smoke, jiggling his packet of Regals towards Staffe, and even though he doesn't, Staffe takes one, goes with them. The door is on the crest of a bend in the road. Staffe draws on his Regal, and they all watch a car as it slows, changing gear for the bend. The locals raise their hands to salute the driver. Fucking Mitch, dirty bastard, still slipping Slocum's wife while he's away, says Gavin, the lad. I blame him, says Bilbo. You work with cars, Staffe says to Fran. Who's told you that? Staffe nods down to Fran's oily fingers, the nails stained black as boot polish. I saw Boxter in the drive just now, says Staffe, scathingly. That'll be that piece he's been seeing, says Bilbo. The accountant woman, says Gavin. Gavin, the lad, stubs out his cigarette and says, I'm off. He drunkenly climbs a stile on the other side of the entrance to the car park, stumbling down, and staggers into the night. He's gone off without his bike again, says Fran, nodding to an old butcher's bike leaning against the wall. They stub their fags underfoot and go back inside. When Staffe sits back down, Rimmer says, We need to find out why Far Jamud really withdrew his horses from Attilio Trapani's yard. Staffe's thoughts turn to Brighton and the past. He slaps Rimmer on his shoulder and says, Good man. Rodney beckons them to the bar with the wiggle of a fine bottle of malt, and Rimmer goes across. Staffe watches from afar, nods his agreement when Rimmer suggests they stay the night. 20. Staffe rises before 6. He's in a tiny guest room in the eaves of the Crooked Billet, and the rising sun slants in through the Velux window. He has a quick wash, climbs quickly into his clothes and sneaks down the stairs, hearing Rimmer snore through the walls of the neighbouring room. Rodney's dog yaps twice, but Staffe lets himself out into the yard, gets Gavin the lad's bike and pedals down Tippett's Lane to the Yockingham Gallops. Attilio and his small staff make silhouettes on the folded outlines of the gentle Surrey hills. Attilio directs affairs, and Staffe waits for the last piece of work to be done. Judging from the way the last horse's work is watched intently by everyone, this must be Gemstone, the jewel in Attilio's string and owned by A.B. Myers. Slowly the string is taken back to the yard. The morning has become brilliant. I've told you and your damned colleague everything I know, barks Attilio as he hacks past Staffe. The horse's sweat is sweet and deep. Staffe freewheels through the dew in Attilio's wake, and Attilio pulls up, looking down on Staffe. What do you want? I can see you're upset, but I just wanted to say... Staffe waits as Attilio's hack rears up. Attilio calms the horse expertly, and the string gets further away. You can't escape what you don't say, what you don't do. I only realised after my father died all the things he did for me, the duty he paid. He was a different man to what he wanted to be, and I never thanked him for being a father, the best he could be. Attilio dismounts. Don't try to trick me. I left too much unsaid. When my father was suddenly not there any more, I was angry with myself. I haven't even said goodbye to him, says Attilio. He leans with his back to a large yew tree. There are things about my father I will never know. Carmelo is the last of the line. His story will disappear with him. And then you will be the last of the line. Attilio shakes his head. I was never going to be that. You were there at the reading of the will. Unacknowledged, that's what I am. He changed his will very close to the end. You could challenge it. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. You have to let an old man go the way he wants to go. There is something called honour. This is a matter of doing the right thing. You won't find me digging it all over. Digging it all over? Staffe thinks this a strange phrase. Digging! That's what you do. I'm digging into Jacobo, but not getting anywhere. I had to consider the possibility that he was involved in your father's abduction. As another victim, you mean? Or otherwise? Jacobo is fiercely loyal to my father, in a way I have never understood. Attilio watches his string come round a last time and head back to the training yard, led by Helena now. She looks daggers at them. He was always around when my father was not. Jacobo and Appolina were like a mother and father to me. Why might A.B. Myers think Jacobo is responsible for what happened to your father? I can't believe he would say such a thing, and I won't speculate. Attilio continues to watch Helena. You're reliant on A.B. now. Is that what your father wanted? How am I reliant upon A.B. Myers? I know about Blackfriars Holdings and the deal with the estate. A.B. saved your bacon and Helena's. That was a good deal for everybody. Now, if you're finished, what about Morris? Your father obviously took quite a shine to him. It would be easy for me to point a finger. He has a foot in A.B.'s camp too. I saw them at the races just the other day. You can't drag me down that road. I will try to do the honourable thing for the family and its name. I am under no illusion. I have to fight for my life. Fight for your business and your marriage, you mean? My marriage has nothing to do with this, you hear? Attilio remounts his hack. Nothing whatsoever. How does Helena feel about selling out to new money? We still have the house. For how long? Says Staffe, watching Attilio kick his hack's quarters, and the steed accelerates away, hooves heavy in the ancient Surrey turf. Time was, Henry VIII came a-hunting in these parts. The mist rises from the meadow between them and the manor, its Jacobean chimney stacks rising like something from a fairy tale. This is the best time of day. The sun catches the dew on the football pitches, and the fields are covered in vapour. The air is still, and the shadow from the chapel's ugly spire is cast long and fine. The curses and threats are still between sheets. Pulford rises at 5:30 each morning. He likes an hour to study and think. In this hour he could be anywhere. Every other time in jail, even when he closes his eyes, there's nowhere else he might be. He will run out of material if he doesn't slow down, so he rations this final article, chews long on the ideas and facts, digesting what Hutchison is saying about the Afghan and the Albanian gangs, and how it was ever thus in the East End, when Jews and Italians, Turks and Jamaicans would join hands across all their oceans in the name of organised crime. All the time, in the back of his mind, the danger his mother is in taunts Pulford. It turns his stomach and fogs his thoughts. For hours every day he curls on the thin mattress and feels himself slowly churn. He should tell Staffe. But if the E-gang get word the police know, the danger she is in will escalate. He can't help imagining how she must have reacted to the killing of Simba. She bought the dog 14 years ago as a puppy, when Pulford had first left home to take up his scholarship at that school. Look at him now. He reverts to a potted biography he's compiling of Charles Sabini, and he sifts through the footnotes, reading about Sabini's Brighton years when he passed under the name of Fred Handley, setting new standards for viciousness in the businesses of extortion and illegal gambling. He marks the text and makes an entry in his bibliography, then refers back to his notes from the article Staffe had brought in, Colour-blind crooks. Someone is outside his door. In prison, your instinct for the abnormal is hypersensitive, so Pulford rapidly finishes his sentence, noting, the ethnic diversity, the social inclusiveness of crime in London today simply mirrors the halcyon period of pre-war gangland London. He writes, melting pot, just as the knock comes on the door. A thought occurs to him and he writes, Carmelo? Age, Sabini. The knock is louder and accompanied by Mr. Crawshaw's sneering welcome to the new day. He quickly puts his pile of papers away and watches the door open, sees Levi Salmon, large as a bear and smiling, stepping into his cell. Levi carries a tray. The door closes behind him, and from outside a key turns. The bolt shoots. Levi Salmon has a gold tooth and shoulders wider than an armchair. You ought to keep your nut down, Pulford, and your mouth shut. So when your mum comes... What? My peeps in the north say she knows all about you now, knows you're coming to trial. We keep an eye on her. We keep an eye just like the police up there. Who you think told the police up there to keep an eye on your mummy? Your Uncle Ray? He's been tending her close. Tending all her needs is what my soldiers tell me. How's that sound? You bastard! Pulford swings for beef, but the big man sways back fast as a middleweight. Pulford lunges again, but Beef brings the tray up, catching Pulford on the chin. He yelps with pain, has bitten into his tongue, not all the way through, but enough for the blood to sluice, and Pulford stops, tries to talk, but it hurts too much. Beef lets the tray fall to the floor, and as it clatters, Pulford sees what magic Beef might perform. In his right hand, he holds a paring knife, and he backs Pulford up to the wall. He puts the tip of the knife to Pulford's Adam's apple. Open your mouth. Pulford opens his mouth, closing his eyes. That's nasty, man. But anyone can see those teeth marks done that, you clumsy motherfucker. Beef whistles, and the bolt shoots. Crawshaw steps in, tosses the morning edition of the News onto his bed, folded open to a picture of hooded youths in Hackney. In the bottom right corner, a small inset portrait of Jadis Golding. The train picks out a hi-hat rhythm as it chunters along the track. Staffe remembers the first time he made this trip with his father and his sister Marie, speeding through cuttings and along bridges over meandering rivers. He flicks through a sample he lifted from Leon Goldman's vast memoir, looking for something on Brighton. The memoir jumps back and forth in time, and the sections are arranged thematically, on the subjects of heritage, beginnings, commerce, heart, Hedon, homeland, and a final incomplete collection of notes on legacy. Martin Goldman hasn't compiled an index yet, and Staffe has only brought the parts in which he saw mention of Carmelo on the quick flick-through, mainly from Heddon. Goldman writes, "We would attend Brighton for racehorses and Hove for greyhounds, rendezvousing the evening prior to laying final plans for the sojourn. The British Queen was our favoured establishment, and the gathered throng would imbibe whisky and soda, save Carmelo, whose penchant was for pep with a shot of rum, in deference to his delicate stomach. In all our years as client and adviser, I was never aware of Carmelo visiting a doctor with his supposed ailment, and I suspect he had an aversion to whisky. Grappa was his tipple of choice, but this wasn't available in the British Queen, where gin was considered exotica. It was ever the case that the plans for the South Coast trips would accommodate an evening in which Carmelo went unaccompanied. We all had our suspicions what this might involve. Carmelo's libido was certainly quite enviable for a man like myself, contentedly married and not endowed with the most handsome of faces. I envied Carmelo neither his wealth nor the power it wielded, but the regard he was afforded by the most beautiful, sought-after, and mischievous women sometimes made me a little green. We would always travel by train, reserving an entire first-class carriage. If A.B. Myers was with us—" Staffe rereads this section, makes a pencil mark in the margin, and folds down the top corner of the page. "If A.B. Myers was with us, we would smoke cigars. This began in the days before Castro, when A.B. would return from his voyages, renewing investments in Cuba, with the tallest tales of the Cuban women and the music, and, of course, a box of cohibas. In summer, we would gravitate towards the Regency and partake of oysters and lobster before retiring to the casino. There would be the same complexion of people in the casino as at the course, and the gambling would escalate. The winners from the course had money to reinvest. The losers had losses to recoup. In such circumstances, something has to yield, and invariably a confrontation will ensue. On one occasion—" Staffe rubs his temples. Goldman's archaic style is hard to bear, but he conjures images of what it must have been like when Carmelo was in his pomp and first met A.B. Myers. He takes out the photograph of Jacopo Sartori and reverts to the text, seeking mention of Jacopo, but there is none. Even the most turgid memoir doesn't dwell on a manservant. Staffe determines to visit the Regency and have the lobster, a taste A.B. Myers perhaps acquired in Cuba, and Staffe thinks back to the journey he made around Carmelo's house in Beaver Place and the oil painting of the fisherman on the promenade. He knows what is depicted now. It is the Malecon in Havana, with the sea crashing high against the sea wall and the vintage American cars cruising by. Carmelo must have visited Cuba in the 50s, which puts him in a new league. He went with A.B. Myers, which puts them in the same boat from an early time. And he remembers what Emma Thyssen-Wills had said to him about the Trapani history and too many given days. 21. Inspector Wagstaff has a good face, just as Apollina described, though his appearance is somewhat dishevelled. He has a face of burden, as his father used to say. Jacopo saw his father for the last time, waving him off from the port at Trapani for a brave new start. He was a different person then. 4 days later, when he passed through customs at Tilbury, Jacopo was taken to one side by a policeman with a lopsided face, and informed that his father was dead. He asked the policeman if it was an execution, and the man said he didn't know. Walking to the East End that day, he knew there was no way back. He had to become a man and put his past behind him. Every now and again, The inspector stops to regard his surroundings with a long gaze. Once they're on the seafront, it becomes clear that Wagstaff is heading for the Regency, where on any other given lunchtime it is where Jacobo might be found, in the window seat with his white bait and a glass of Sangiovese. Better a bird in the trees than a duck sitting. Clearly the inspector's instincts are good. It might serve Jacobo well to walk in there now, introduce himself, and put himself utterly at the police's disposal. But he shan't do that whilst there is still a chance things might come his way. The inspector takes a tucked-away seat from where he can see everything in the place. He orders lobster, which he eats expertly and at leisure. As he slowly chews, he reads from a pile of loose papers on the table. When the waiter clears the table, the inspector engages him in conversation, shows him something that he takes from his inside pocket, presumably a photograph of Jacobo. He wonders if it is the one of him by the bandstand. The inspector would have asked Apollina where Jacobo is likely to be, and she will have told him nothing. Always she has known nothing, and he hopes that is sufficient to assure her safety. Looking briefly away, he sees the bandstand. After a little more than an hour, the inspector pays, and in the doorway, leaving, he receives a call. Jacobo knows that if the inspector knew to come to the Regency, then he will probably find his way to the dog track, and later to the rendezvous. But if they knew the inspector was coming, they would know that by watching the inspector, they may find him. Jacobo is easing that process, so he walks into the lanes, winding and narrow, where you can easily lose yourself. He knows he can catch up with the inspector later, by conforming to old habits, old places, the Lord Nelson, Hove Dogs, the Burlington Tea Rooms, or even the Rendezvous. Lost now in the lanes, Jacobo wonders how Morris is faring. He looks in an old jewellery shop, Frankel and Son. Old man Frankel was their fence those years ago. He looks, and he sees himself amongst the pearls and stones. Half sees and half imagines a pale outline of Morris's grandfather and old times. Poor Morris. Josie traces her finger along the mapped landmarks on the enlarged street map of the East End. She has charted all the points Brandon Latimer made on Pulford's unauthorised tracker, and sitting in Hoxton Square, she waits, poised to follow his Cherokee jeep. He's behind his routine, so she calls Staffe, listens to him wax about Brighton. It's a lovely day, apparently. She says, "Well, I'm hoping it just got a little lovelier." Brandon's jeep enters the square, passing the white cube. Brandon's head just poked above the parapet. She can't see beyond the smoked windows, but it is definitely him. Her blood pumps, and she moves in behind him as they process out of the square, driving east. "I think I know where he's going, sir." "Where?" "The lime kiln." "Wait for me to get back." "I'll set up. In the flat we sorted," she says. "You know where I'll be?" She hangs up, calls into Ledengate, and as soon as she sees Brandon's brake lights glow on the approach to the lime kiln, she veers away. Parks underground down at Old Street, and changes into her velour tracksuit. She makes a ponytail and pulls it through her Lakers cap, checks herself out in the mirror, and calls the caretaker of the lime kiln estate for the keys to the empty flat. She walked back to the lime kiln with her eyebuds in. Once inside the empty flat opposite Jasmine Cash's place, one floor up, Josie puts up the net curtains and seats herself at the window, prepared for a long haul. The dogs come out, led towards the traps by their handlers. There is one in particular that appeals to Staffe, but he is distracted by the sound of Martin Goldman in his ear. People often lie when they talk to police. Most often it is down to a fear of authority, not lying to conceal a guilt, rather to tell you what they think you want to know. Goldman is plain lying, though. My father is asleep, I can't disturb him, he's a frail man. Staffe says, it would really help the investigation if you could send me an electronic version of your father's memoir. You're lucky to have the script at all. It's a personal document, and cannot be relied upon, of course. I'm enjoying it, but there's no timeline, and there are over 1,000 pages. It's impossible to follow. It's a first draft. I think it could be published, you know, says Staffe. These histories are important. I'll ask him when he wakes, but I think he might regret giving you the memoir in the first place. Martin hangs up. The dogs are being loaded into the traps now. His father took him to Wimbledon Dogs, where they would meet Uncle John. Once, Uncle John had a beautiful woman with him, in a short skirt and with big hair. She was called Cynthia, and fussed over young Will. His father said, Will's going to pick you a winner. Which one, Will? His father's breath was sweet with drink. Staffe knew from previous trips with his father and Uncle John to choose the dog led by the prettiest girl, and he pointed to a girl he thought looked like Olivia Newton-John. Will loved Olivia Newton-John with all his young heart, and his father and uncle guffawed and piled on the dog with big old fivers. The dog won, and everybody gave Will all their change. The beautiful woman kissed him and went, as she did it, saying, You're going to break some hearts. When they got home, his father said, Jangle for your mum, and they all laughed. Will went to bed thinking that one day he would be just like Uncle John, and he wonders now why that didn't come to pass. The starting bell rings for the race he came for. According to the Racing Post, the P.2 dog, Dowager Dawn, should go off at 6-1. Now it's 5-2. It's trained just up the road and owned by Green, M. Though Green is by no means the uncommonest of names, Staffe reckons the M is for Morris. He works his way down to the rails as Dowager Dawn hardens even further to 2-1. He puts 50 quid on and takes his ticket, says to the bookie, Is Morris here? The bookie takes someone else's money and nods up to the restaurant above them. He loves his fucking dog. He's on big style. Staffe doesn't look up, but works his way through the throng of people huddling around the bookie stands. The air is thick with the smell of frying hot dogs and cigarette smoke. The crowd soon thins to nothing in the old rickety iron-roofed stand, where the lights aren't even on. In the grandstand, the restaurant is brilliantly lit with its tote girls and office outings. Beyond, the track has an ellipse of high lights, like badly strung pearls. Staffe takes out his binoculars and pans up to the boxes. In the third along, just one person stands at the front, his binoculars trained on Staffe. The two sets of lenses couple, and Maurice Green raises his arm, smiles broadly. The gun goes off, and the dogs power past, clattering the earth with dull paradiddles, tilting at an impossible camber, and in an instant it is over. The dogs turn on the rabbit, and a handler throws them a tatty rib of beef. The winner is fussed, put on a lead and led away by the prettiest handler of them all. Staffe looks at his ticket, which says Trap 5. He looks up at Maurice Green, who is glum. Staffe picks up his winnings, courtesy of Trap 5, and as he hands across the 20 £20 notes, the bookie smiles, from which Staffe gleans that had Morris's Dowager Dawn come in, he would have taken a bit of a pasting. "Have you seen Jacobo?" asked Staffe. The bookie reaches past Staffe, pays out the man behind him, flashing a suspicious look, and shaking his head without looking him in the eye. He shouts, "Move along the bus if you're paid out." and busies himself in his leather Gladstone bag of loose notes. Staffe turns and wafts the wad in the air, in the direction of the boxes, not looking up, but knowing he is seen. Josie takes a swig from her last can of Red Bull and readjusts the cushions on the dining chair she has set up by the window of the flat. It is dark now, and the concrete decks of the lime kiln are lit here and there. Some windows glow behind drawn curtains, and a compendium of urban music booms around the estate. On the decks they hang out in young, unsupervised huddles. A man in a hood swaggers up from the stairwell, and Josie leans forward, the net curtain rough on her forehead, between her and the window. The man walks as if he has a limp, but with a defined rhythm. She can't be sure, but from CCTV footage she's seen, he has the hallmarks of Brandon Latimer. Sure enough, he doesn't break his stride until he knocks on the door to Jasmine Cash's flat. Within moments, Jasmine appears, and he goes in. Josie sees them kiss, longer than friends. As soon as the door closes on them, she calls Staffe. When he answers, she can hear his inner crowd. "Are you still at the dog track?" "I'm just leaving. There's one more thing I have to do." "Brandon Latimer is on the lime kiln, sir." "Don't go near him. Wait for me." "But you're in Brighton and he's here now." "Here?" "Brandon Latimer's called on Jasmine Cash. They kissed. He's in there now." "My God." "We need to take advantage of this, sir. But we don't want uniforms up here." "I'll come up as soon as I can. And if he's staying the night, we can deal with it in the morning. If he's not staying the night, I can't get there anyway. Just promise me you'll stay put." "I could call Rimmer." "No. You mustn't call Rimmer. Promise me that." "Why?" The phone goes quiet, then Staffe says, "He's somewhere else tonight. Remember, we don't know exactly what Pulford was talking to Latimer about, and we haven't written up the new evidence from Pulford's flat yet. Just keep me posted and stay put." She watches Staffe's name fizzle to nothing on her screen, and finishes the Red Bull, refixing her attention on the door to Jasmine Cash's flat. But as Josie scans the lime kiln's concrete deck, she sees a tall, skinny, familiar youth with a skulking gait and badly bruised face. Louis Considine pauses at Jasmine's door, gives it a couple of knocks, and the door opens. Louis moves quickly inside. Josie quickly puts on her Lakers cap and pulls her ponytail through. She folds down the waistband of her tracky bottoms and goes out. Weed hangs in the air, and the estate is busier now than when she got here in the afternoon. As she works her way to the stairwell, she has to pass a group of girls. One of them pushes a thin-framed pushchair. They look her up and down with suspicion, as if she represents competition. One of them says something in a deep city patois, and Josie readjusts her eyebuds, which aren't receiving, and goes down the dark, empty stairwell, the way Louis came up. She waits there, every sound amplified, every second feeling like a minute. She tries to look as if she's waiting for a dealer. A drunken man comes past, reeking of all-day pub. A woman in a Morrison's blouse with hooded, sad eyes struggles by, and Louis comes out of Jasmine's place. He knocks into the woman with the sad eyes and helps pick up her shopping, saying he's sorry. But he does it one-handed, all the time his other hand stuck down his grey trainer bottoms. When he's done, he looks up, sees Josie and walks towards her, tuning his walk into a swagger and looking at her breasts, quickly at her face, then away. He doesn't recognise her, so Josie says, "I said I'd come see you, Louis." He double-takes, looks her up and down again and keeps the one hand down his trousers, stiffens his slouch into a hard man's pose. "And now you're here." He talks to the flesh between the waistbands of her top and bottoms. Still doesn't recognise her. So she takes a step closer, watches him flinch, then correct himself, and now he looks her in the face. He squints. "Miss?" "That's right," says Josie. "I got a place here now." He looks her up and down again. "You'll live here?" "That's right." Louis checks behind, concerned he might be caught with her. "We should go there, Louis, if we're going to talk." "I don't want to talk." "It's best for you that we talk in my place and not out here. We don't want Brandon and Jasmine to hear." "Fuck!" "And you need to tell me about your brother, Curtis." "The fuck!" "Come on, Louis. I don't look like police tonight, do I? Nobody needs to know. Just when we walk past those girls on my deck, just look like we're, you know." "Fuck, man," says Louis, his hand moving inside his bottoms. And his expression changes, as if a penny is dropping. "All right." They walk back, past the group of girls, and Josie puts an extra few degrees of shunt to the roll of her hips. At her empty place, she removes her cap, welcomes Louis into her world, but as he comes in, brushing past her, he seems to have discovered a proper swagger. He seems different, in control, and she realises he succumbed too easily.
End of Disc 4. Disc 5.
22. Staffe shaves at the pink basin with a one-blade scraper he brought from the all-night store on the corner. He draws his wet hair back and fashions a parting with his fingertips, picks up his phone and goes to the window of his hotel room, lifts the sash. The night is balmy and has salt on its sea breath. He makes the call, fearful this could backfire. "Jacobo is here," he says. "I'm damn sure of it. We're on." Although they have agreed a plan, Staffe is uneasy as he walks to the rendezvous. When he gets to the casino, he pauses on the steps, is tempted to turn around, but resists. He feels eyes on him. It's what he wants. And he calls Josie, but she doesn't answer. He hopes that this is because she is sleeping, so he texts her to say he can't be contacted for at least 2 hours and he'll see her in the morning. He reiterates that she should lie low until he gets there. Going inside, he makes the final call, gets a final thumbs up, and at the desk where members sign in, he sees himself again on a monitor. The commissionaire is a handsome woman who shows him all her teeth. Looking over his shoulder, via the monitor, he sees an old man waiting in the doorway. Jacobo Sartori. The main room is low-lit with the balcony running in a horseshoe above the tables. Staffe sits at the bar, sees Maurice Green playing blackjack on a mid-roller's table. He chats to the croupier and bets casually, winning more than he loses. Staffe nurses a coffee, unable to tell if Maurice knows he is there. He fixes a hard gaze onto Maurice, the way he can sometimes make a person feel they're being watched. It's something you can achieve beyond the 5 senses, and sure enough, when the hand finishes and the dealer pushes a teetering column of chips in Maurice's direction, the young fop turns and looks at Staffe, who walks to Maurice's table and pulls up a chair alongside. Without turning, Maurice pushes across a small pile of low-denomination chips. They're playing a fiver a pop, and Staffe takes his cards. "Where's Jacobo, Maurice?" "Jacobo?" says Maurice, raising his voice slightly. He turns, looks around the room and says, "Jacobo!" again, so anybody keeping an eye on them might see what he is saying. Staffe turns too, but you can see little of the room beyond their immediate sphere of light. It's a place to be on the outside looking in. "You seem intent on being with me tonight, Inspector," says Morris, folding his cards. "First, the dog track." Staffe takes another card, raises, and Morris folds. Staffe wins, and the dealer pushes across a modest pile of chips. "You're in the public domain." "And so are you. Haven't you considered that in following me you might be being watched?" In this instant, Staffe has an instinct that Morris is a force for good. He knows better than to trust these instincts, and lo, beyond the tables, a commotion erupts. A glass smashes, and a deeper rumble sounds as if a table might be overturned. A woman shrieks, and Staffe turns to see a congress of bouncers slowly trundling through the room. Some punters turn to see, but most keep their eyes on their hands. This is not so unusual when money and greed and defeat come together at the end of long days. The house lights come up, and a brace of men in overcoats, clearly not bouncers, accompany a frail, elderly gentleman. Staffe recognises one of them as Miles Hennigan. The old man is Jacopo Sartori, with his turned-up nose and big jowls. His hat is askew. Morris says, "I fear you have been used, Inspector." "I was lured here to bring Jacopo out, wasn't I?" "He worked for Carmelo long enough to know that the best way not to be watched is to watch." Morris looks Staffe in the eye and weighs him up. "But you might have known that." "Did you know that and come here anyway?" "Let's go outside, see what's happening." Staffe walks towards the door in no particular hurry, and he flashes his warrant card to the head doorman. He lets Morris go first, to keep an eye on him. 2 squad cars point full beam at the rendezvous's golden entrance. 4 uniformed officers have a hold of suede-headed Miles, and a police dog snaps at his legs. A WPC holds Jacopo Sartori's arm, the way an attentive niece might accompany an elderly uncle. His eyes are wide with excitement, flitting one way and then the other, possibly trying to calculate who presents the greater threat. Alongside Jacopo, Rimmer smiles broadly at Staffe, who says to Morris Green, "Don't you just love it when a plan comes together?" "You expected this?" "I'm sorry, Morris. I think I like you." He clasps a strong hand around Morris's thin forearm. "But you're going to have to come with us." "I admire your style," says Morris. He smiles and shrugs, spins free of Staffe's clasp, taking a fast step back against the door of the rendezvous and karate-kicking Staffe in the balls. As Staffe hunches double, Morris brings down the full weight of his 2 small fists on the back of Staffe's neck. Staffe's head whiplashes, and he falls heavily to the ground, his face smashing into the flagstones. He watches Morris's shoes, a high-end pair of side-buckle brogues, skip fast across the ground, deep into the dark. Louis Considine chain-smokes his L&B Silvers. Josie can tell he's coming down from something, and she says, "If you help us, I'll make sure they can't touch you. And whatever it is you need, I can get it for you." "Fuck off!" He says it with a broken spirit. Brandon killed Jadis. You know that, don't you, Louis? Louis stubs his cigarette out on the cracked linoleum of the kitchen diner. He avoids looking at Josie and fidgets with his pack of L&B. He has one left and chooses to save it. "If you think they're going to protect you, Louis, you're wrong. And if you don't help me, there'll be 2 squad cars around here in 5 minutes, and uniformed officers marching you past Jasmine's flat with Brandon watching you go into custody." What's it going to be like for you then? And Curtis? Curtis? What are you talking about? Curtis is involved, isn't he, Louis? You don't know Curtis. He's not like me. I asked around. He's just started uni. Louis plunges his hand deeper into his tracky bottoms. They've all got alibis for the night Jadis was murdered. Yours isn't so good, is it? I was with my girlfriend in Margate. Oh, do you think she'll stand by you once you're remanded in custody and Brandon pays her a visit? Do you want Brandon to pay her a visit? That fucking copper killed Jay. You know he didn't. I know you know. Louis looks up at Josie, then at the door. His eyes go wide and Josie feels a chill in her stomach. Louis looks as if he's trying to work something out, and his forehead crinkles. His tongue pokes out the corner of his mouth. He's backed the dog into the corner. Will you let me help you, Louis? I can help you and Curtis. You're right. It wasn't that copper. It was me. I killed him, miss. I killed Jay. Louis Considine pulls the Browning from his tracky bottoms. He looks at the gun and backs away from Josie, extending his arm. He looks at the gun in his hand as if it might damage him, and he turns the gun 90 degrees so it's horizontal, the way he has seen in films, and out on the silt flats of the estuary past Tilbury, learning to use the thing. Louis, don't. Don't ruin your life. You're the one ruining it. You should have let me be, but you didn't, and now it's all fucked up. You didn't kill Jadis, Louis. I know that. I fucking did. Where'd you get the gun from, Louis? I fucking killed him, man. Brap, brap. Where did you shoot him, Louis? Down the fucking canal. Where in his body did you shoot him? You know that. But you don't, Louis. And how many times did you shoot him? Louis steps towards Josie. He reaches out with the gun and pushes it into her face. Open your mouth! Please, Louis. I want to open your fucking mouth, you bitch! Josie opens her mouth. She tastes the metal of the barrel and it bangs hard against her teeth. He pushes the barrel in further and she gags, convulsing, and the gun bangs into her teeth harder. With his other hand he picks his last cigarette from the pack, puts it in his mouth and scrunches the pack, drops it to the floor, then lights the cigarette and blows smoke in her face. She closes her eyes, keeps them closed, and breathes smoke in through her nose. The metal harshness of the gun withdraws. When she opens her eyes, Louis is further away, the gun by his side. I'm sorry, he says. And he turns the gun around, holds it by the barrel and hands it to her. Josie takes hold of the pistol butt, and together they are each gripping it. Josie pulls the gun away from Louis, but he keeps hold of the barrel. She tugs again, and he tugs back, and they each look at Josie's hand, one finger on the trigger. Louis takes a long draw on his cigarette, holds the smoke in his mouth, the burning tip glowing red. Then he blows into her face again, and fast as a flash, plunges the glowing cigarette into the soft flesh of her hand. Josie can't help herself. She clenches, and the trigger snaps heavily. She waits for the bang, but it doesn't come, and then pain sears into her hand. Louis pulls the gun away. Not fucking loaded, man. She wrings her hand, instinctively puts the soft flesh to her mouth, sucks on the burn as Louis walks away, letting himself out and taking the gun with him. Her prints on it now. 23. Ledengate strip lights buzz in the bleary night, and the coffee machine gurgles. Far away, a photocopier whirs. Staffe issues his instructions to the uniforms and soccos for the exercise of warrants at Morris Green's flat, both A.B. Myers' houses, Ockingham Manor, and Jacobo Sartori's house. Uniformed officers will simultaneously enter each of the premises, and the soccos will work in 2 teams, taking Green's place and A.B.'s Stepney Green house first. Staffe tells Josie to call on Appolina Sartori and stay with her. It might be some time before they get there. Josie smiles thinly and looks at her hands, covering the burn on one with the palm of the other. She looks up at him, and together they think about the prints those hands left on the gun that probably killed Jadis Golding. For now, nobody else in the room knows about that. As everybody leaves, Staffe catches Josie, says, "When we're done with these interviews and searches, we'll catch up with that scrote Louis Considine." "I'm so sorry. I was an idiot." "For now, get Appolina Sartori talking about the past. She knows something. She might not even think it's important, but Jacobo and Carmelo share a secret. I'm sure of it." Jacobo Sartori asks if he can see Appolina, and Staffe tells him that will have to wait, which saddens both. In the meantime, Jacobo refuses to answer the questions asked of him. Why did he go into hiding? Why was he in the rendezvous? When was the last time he saw Carmelo? Did anybody come to the house that day? Why would A.B. Myers wish to lure Jacobo to a public place and then try to abscond with him? "Everything you've done links you to the abduction of Carmelo Trapani," says Staffe. The strip lights in the Ledengate interview room flicker, and Jacobo wipes his milky eyes. Tiny triangles of creamy saliva collect in the corners of his mouth. "We have a warrant to search every fibre of your home." "That would be very upsetting for my wife, but she is strong." "Perhaps she loves you more." Jacobo looks away. "You are not entitled to judge me." "You don't seem concerned about Carmelo, considering how long you've been together. I understand he introduced you to Appolina." Jacobo passes one hand through the other in looping figures of 8 and chews his lip. The triangles of creamy saliva licked away. "Do you think he's still alive?" Staffe can't tell what response might please Jacobo. "I know you bear a burden. I'll be speaking to Appolina about it before you see her next. It would help your cause if the information came from you." "I want to speak to Martin Goldman." "You can't. He would have a conflict of interest." He looks up at Staffe. "In that case, I can't say anything." "And you're happy to remain here in custody. I can see that." Staffe buzzes through to Jumbo. "Sergeant, would you make up some release papers for Mr. Sartori and bring them through?" "You can't just let me go." "If you won't talk, what's the point of keeping you here? You said you wanted to see Appolina. You can be there when we conduct our search." "I wanted her to come here. I just want to see her." "I can see why you wouldn't want us to release you into the world of A.B. Myers," says Staffe, going to the door, greeting Jumbo, and directing him to hand back the items on the inventory of possessions. A wallet containing an American Express card and £1,600, a Hunter pocket watch, a white plastic key card for the King's Hotel Brighton, 2 tote betting slips from Brighton Greyhound Stadium. Staffe picks up the pocket watch. Smith and Sons, very nice. 18th century. He hands it back to Jumbo. Says, "Now, Sergeant, you better get back to Mr. Hannigan. I think we can release him too. Perhaps the 2 of you could share a cab. You know Miles Hannigan, don't you, Jacobo? You met in the Rendezvous Casino. From what I saw, the 2 of you have unfinished business." "Very clever," says Jacobo, playing with the end of his turned-up nose. "I suppose I could make a statement." "I think you're going to be a great help to us, Jacobo." He says to Jumbo, "Perhaps you'd be kind enough to take Mr. Sartori's statement, Sergeant, whilst I tell Mr. Hennigan he will need to get a cab home on his own." "You can't release him," says Jacobo. "You really don't want to be anywhere near A.B. Myers and his gang, do you, Jacobo? You either have something they want or something they fear." Whilst Jacobo Sartori writes his version of everything he's done and seen since he last left his house in Muswell Hill 5 days ago, Staffe makes his way down Leadengate's musty corridors towards Miles Hennigan, stewing in interview room 3. Except, when Staffe checks on the monitor before he goes in, Miles isn't stewing. He stares at the camera with a contented smile. He doesn't blink, simply exudes a professional's calm. When Staffe enters the room, Miles says, "I know what this must look like to you, Inspector, but Mr. Myers is very fond of Jacobo Sartori, and we were only trying to save him from himself. I promise you, with all my heart, I wouldn't harm a hair, or let anyone else. When Mr. Myers heard what happened to Carmelo, and we discovered Jacobo was missing, he felt he had to do everything he could to find Jacobo." "So why is Jacobo afraid at the prospect of having his liberty restored? The poor man is desperate to see his wife, yet he doesn't want to be released. He is afraid that you and Aby are waiting for him." "Some people don't know what's good for them." "Like the Nigerians?" Still, Miles Hennigan doesn't bat an eye. His smile widens a little, as if out of respect for Staffe's research. "You might think I am a mercenary, but I choose my causes carefully." "What does Jacobo know that might hurt your cause so badly?" Now Miles Hennigan does blink, just once, but it tells Staffe more than everything else he has said. Jacobo Sartori does know something. Perhaps it is what Apollina refers to as his burden. "I'll come back as soon as you decide you've got something to say." He pats Miles on the shoulder. "I saved your neck, remember?" "I'm trying to save Carmelo's." "We're all fond of Carmelo. Why else would he remember Mr. Myers so generously in his will?" "Well, what would you know? You're just the hired hand." "I would never use the word just, Inspector. I never just do anything. I embrace a mission with commitment and unfailing loyalty." "You consider your work for AB a mission?" "It is my mission to employ my skills for good causes. This cause, I assure you, is a good one." "Where had you been when you were recommended to him?" "I won't say." "Palestine?" "Some would say that's not a place," says Miles, his mouth pursing to deadly seriousness, which gives Staffe his answer. "Tell me what Jacobo knows, Miles. Tell me his burden." Miles stares into a distance, not blinking. Jacobo Sartori wipes the corners of his mouth and takes the small microphone from Jumbo. "It was a cold day. Apollina called me back from the gate and gave me the Ushanka hat. It was a gift from her the time we went to St. Petersburg. That was 20 years ago. She asked me again why I had to stay over, and I told her again that I didn't know, but Carmelo was insisting. When I got to the house, he sent the housekeeper away and cancelled the gardener for the next day while I made risotto. My risotto takes 18 minutes, and that's all the time we spent apart the whole night. We had 2 grappas each and retired early, by 10, I would say. And in the morning he was already up and about by the time I was dressed. And soon after he disappeared into his room. He was there for an hour or so, and he phoned down to me to say he wanted veal for lunch. The only place we trust the veal is down on Jamaica Road. So I had to go down there, and it's dreadful for buses. I was gone 2 hours, and as soon as I got back with the veal, he told me he was going out later to see the Livorskis. I don't know what hold they have on him, but Bogdan Livorsky was in the square when I came back with the veal. He was on a bench in the far corner of the square. I'm sure it was him, but my eyes sometimes let me down. I started to cook the veal, and Carmelo took a phone call. He was raising his voice, and when he was finished he came into the kitchen and turned off the stove. He told me to get packed, and he gave me some money, a couple of thousand, and he said to get away. He said there was nothing to worry about, but I should not be in London for a day or so. He looked very concerned for me, and I said I would get Apollina, but he was insistent that I said nothing to anyone about where I was going. He made me promise. I have known Carmelo all my life, and sometimes it seems we have shared one life, not had 2 separate ones. I trust him absolutely. He has never acted against my interests. Not ever. So I eventually agreed to go. I told him that I would go to Brighton. It is close, and I am very fond of it, and it is busy enough to go unnoticed. I stayed on the Hove side, at the Lancaster. Carmelo called me a taxi for London Bridge, and we left the house together. He drove the Daimler around to the Livorskis, and I went to get the train, and that is the last time we saw each other or spoke. Jumbo takes the microphone from Jacobo and saves the audio file, emails it to the office, copying it to himself. Back at his desk, Jumbo logs in the contents of Jacobo Sartori's small suitcase that has been delivered from the Lancaster Hotel. It contains everything that was in his room there. As he makes the inventory, Staffe emerges from his interview with Miles Hennigan. Staffe looks into the open suitcase. Lying on top, in a clear plastic evidence bag labelled "Found in bin, Lancaster Hotel, Room 19", is a photograph of himself. He picks it up, scrutinises it, and asks Jumbo to run Jacobo's audio file. As he listens through headphones, every word that Jacobo says is distinct. His recollection is clear. A little too clear. Staffe squints at the photograph of himself, sees something in the background. When the audio file is played out, he says to Jumbo, "I don't really look that rough, do I, John?" "Where was it taken?" Staffe taps the photo, just above his right shoulder. "This is Carmelo's place, the morning after he disappeared. The only person who knew Carmelo was missing then was Attilio," says Jumbo, "and Helena. Or the person who abducted him." Staffe flips the photo over, sees written in a large, meticulous hand, "An inspector calls." "Which means we know precisely where they were the morning after Carmelo Trapani was taken. Well, let's have one last small chat with Jacobo. Then I'm going to take him home. We'll let Hennigan stew. Keep him fed and watered, and don't let Myers anywhere near him. There's something else for you." Jumbo hands Staffe an envelope embossed with the logo of the National Archives. As he gets into his car, Staffe thinks about the contents of the bin at the Lancaster Hotel, and something undefined niggles him. "Lancaster Hotel," he says to himself aloud. It sounds wrong, but he doesn't know why. He reverses the car out in a wide arc, sees Jumbo striding towards him, waving a piece of paper, saying, "Lancaster Hotel." "What about it?" John goes into his breast pocket, pulls out a card wrapped in an evidence bag. Why would the Jacobo have a key for the King's Hotel? 24. Louis Considine's brother Curtis has perfect caramel skin and luscious locks of dark brown hair tousled from the night. His eyes are still puffy from sleep, and he blinks at Staffe, says, "What the fuck?" Beyond, in his student flat, a tiny, beautiful Japanese woman gets out of bed wearing just a T-shirt. When she bends to get juice from the fridge, her butt cheeks show. She turns, smiling, wiggling a carton of apple juice. Curtis is a very lucky young man. Looking back at Curtis, Staffe thinks, and so are you, young lady. He shows his warrant card to Curtis, who merely shrugs. Clearly, this is not the first time for Curtis, even though he has no criminal record, and he's just started a BA in Economics and Statistics at LSE. He got straight A stars from Ernest Bevan in Hackney, and is on one of the most competitive undergraduate courses in the country. "The fuck you want?" he says, sounding out of context, sounding just like his little brother. Staffe says, "I'm worried about your little brother, Curtis." "Who are you?" says the girl, coming up to Staffe and peering at him. Her eyes are like tiny pillows made from silk, to take jewels. She studies him as if he is a rarity. "I have to practice." "You won't be here long, Mako," says Curtis, kissing her away. The two men watch her pick up a violin and pad into the ensuite. Once she closes the bathroom door, Curtis says, "There's nothing wrong with Louis. He's a good boy." "He's got a different life to you." "I got to the plaudits first is all. They run out fast where we're from. Can you imagine that? Only space for one freak, man." "I can see trouble coming for Louis. You know Louis is tangled in that Golding murder. You'll have known Jadis and Brandon Latimer." Curtis shakes his head, slowly, extravagantly. "Why exactly are you here harassing me?" "Oh, this isn't harassment, Curtis. I just need to know where Louis was on the 18th of August. "The fuck would I know?" "He says he was with his girlfriend, Layla Frankland." "She's a crackhead, anyone'll tell you. But if she says she was with him, she was with him." "Let's hope so." "Where were you, Curtis?" "I was at Margate. It was results day, see? You can check that out. And I went to the sea with a bottle of rum and I drank the fucking lot and gave thanks to my mother. I promised her I'd make it, and I did. I keep my promises. The Considines keep their promises." "Your mother passed away?" He nods his head. "And it was just you and Louis?" "That was then. He's old enough to be on his own." "You're going to be a rich young man, is my guess. This city's going to be your oyster in 3 years' time, so long as your brother doesn't muddy the waters. I think it's about time you fucked off, don't you, Inspector?" The sound of a violin emerges from beyond the door, and both men stand dead still, their mouths slightly open, as they listen to Mako's music soar and swoon. Eventually, Staffe says, "Bartok." "Number 5, says Curtis. "I can never get the numbers," says Staffe. "Well, you can't make 2 and 2 make 5. "How do you mean?" "This is no political environment to be parking your man's murder on innocent black boys." "Louis isn't black." "Brandon Latimer is. Jadis Golding was. You know the desired outcome here." "Did Brandon do it, Curtis?" Louis could help himself if he just told us what he knows. Curtis's eyes narrow and his fists clench. You can't force statements like that on innocents. You've enough blood on your hands. Curtis unclenches his fists and wiggles his fingers like a boxer. You seem to find this a touchy subject. I tell you this for fuck all. My Louis did bits and bobs once upon, but those days are over. See, he couldn't hurt a flea, my Louis. That's why he needs to get out of there. That's the plan. We just need 3 years while I get the letters after my name and we're out. So you bear that in mind when you're trampling innocents underfoot. He looks up to the ceiling as if talking to someone not here. He closes his eyes, takes in the music. It seems to calm him. And after half a dozen bars, he says, Listen to that. She's loose, isn't she? So fucking loose, man. Birdsong flutters from the trees in Appolina and Jacopo Sartori's garden. It is a compact, nurtured garden, and the early sun paddles soft light on it, as if this place might belong to Renée and Georgia Magritte. Appolina leans on her stick, drowned in her dressing gown. She says to Josie, So Jacopo is safe, but you won't let me see him. This is a serious situation for both of you. We want you both to feel safe. Safe? This is my home. Why wouldn't I be safe? Because of what Jacopo knows. What do you mean? Like I told you, A.B. Myers was trying to abduct Jacopo when we intervened. Why would he do that? Josie pours tea and adds lemon for Appolina. I would love to hear your story. What it was like in Sicily all those years ago. Appolina sits in a wing-back chair that faces the garden. I wouldn't know. I'm a Roman girl. Tell me about the first time you met Jacopo. It was here in London. We met through Carmelo. I worked for him, and I can remember the first time Jacopo looked at me. Do you have a husband? I am with someone, sort of. Give him time. It's not what people say, you know. Not always. It sounds to me like you were lucky. They say you make your own luck. We have a responsibility to our heart, but we're not beholden to it. Jacopo has been a loyal husband. He put me first, you might say. To begin with, he had to go away with Carmelo, but gradually he put a stop to that. He never told me anything, though. Appolina talks to Josie about life after the war, and how gradually everything began to change for the better, and Carmelo made more and more money, and they came by this house, and Jacopo became more and more content as the years passed. But then Carmelo's wife died, and he never found love again. Love was never such a thing for Carmelo. I never saw a person who could control his heart the way Carmelo did. He never lost his temper, you know. He always acted with his head, ice in his veins. Not a bad man, but he didn't feel things like Jacopo. He spent all his money on Mary and God. And what about A.B.? I heard his wife moved on. Moved on? Appolina stares into the garden. She looks startled, and her teacup shakes in its saucer. She holds the cup by its rim, and Josie goes to her, takes it from her. It might help if we could talk to her. It could help Carmelo. I owe Carmelo nothing. He will take his chances with St. Peter. That's what he always said. We need to eliminate Jacobo from our inquiries so you can resume your life. You won't be at peace until we find who took Carmelo, and Esther could help. She was crazy, that Esther Myers. She had to move on. Crazy? Oh, yes, says Apollina, turning away from her garden. Her jaw is set, and her chin raised, resolute. Really crazy, that's all I know. But I can tell you I wasn't sad when I heard we'd seen the back of her. In Ledengate, Staffe signs the papers for Jacobo's release, and as they walk to the car park, he says, "We need to know why you were watching me in Brighton. Who sent you the photograph?" "It arrived at the hotel. I don't know who from, and that's the God's honest truth." "Then a phone message at the Lancaster to say which train you were on." "Well, you put yourself in the firing line, following me." "Not such a good outcome as it turned out." "Well, that's the truth." "From what I've read of Leon Goldman's memoir, A.B. Myers would have known you might be at the Lancaster. But why would A.B. come looking for you?" "Because I have something he wants." Jacobo is faltering now. "I don't know what it is. But you must protect me, Inspector. You promised you would." "And you must tell me the truth. You say you stayed in the Lancaster. You're sure about that?" "You've seen my statement." "You're getting tired, Jacobo. Let's get you home." Staffe drives Jacobo home, and the motion of the car soon lulls the old man to sleep. But after a while, Staffe pumps the brake, twice, and fast, which jolts Jacobo from sleep, and he looks warily out of the window. They're driving past Spitalfields Market. "This isn't the way home?" "But it is." A few trendy revellers smoke outside the Lion as Staffe turns onto Cable Street, towards Shadwell Station, with the overground tracks running above them on the left. On the right, St. George's Town Hall, and its enormous mural of the Battle of Cable Street. The plaque for the men and women who joined the International Brigade. They went because their open eyes could see no other way. "I brought you the scenic route." He slows the car down as they pass the high, proud tenements on the left, just where you would turn up to Stepney Green and A.B.'s place. He watches in the rear view as he makes the turn, and slowly, ever slower, they crawl past A.B. Myers' house, where the lights are on. Outside, a couple of soccos load their gear into a van. "He didn't move far, did he?" Who?" Jacobo's voice is weak. He's clearly afraid to be here. "A.B. He has a fancy place up in Stanmore, but he chooses to live here." Up ahead, the non-stop traffic of the Mile End Road rumbles by, hammering in and out of the city. A short distance across the East End is Carmelo's home. Times change, but they didn't move on. Staffe turns off the engine. "We can't stop here." "Tell me about Cable Street, Jacobo." Staffe jabs his thumb over his shoulder. "You were there, weren't you?" "I don't remember." 250,000 people came. They rose up against fascism. It was one of our greatest days. Are you sure you weren't there? You'd remember." "I wasn't there." "Okay." Staffe turns on the engine, and they move slowly away. As they go, a frail figure comes to the first-floor window, peering out. "If you say so." Staffe puts a hand on his heart, feels the papers that came through from the archive, confirming that Jacobo Sartori had come from Sicily to England on Sunday the 23rd of September 1936, just 2 weeks before the Battle of Cable Street gladdened the heart of the free world. The address he gave to Customs? 45 Cable Street. His hometown, Siracusa, the opposite side of the island from Carmelo Trapani. Morris pulls up the collar of his overcoat against the sea wind. He takes out his phone and looks at the photograph of Tatiana on its screen. His stomach is hollow and his thoughts meander, always turning back to her. He watches people board the boat and makes up his mind. He is so close to the end, he can't take flight yet. So he tears the ticket in two and makes his way back to town. As a final group of people rush past him towards the Dieppe crossing, dragging cases and children, Morris unwraps the memories of his father, Claudio, and plays back the old story he told him. Too old to be sitting on his old man's knee, but happy nonetheless to smell the fat of the ham in his sweater and let the gravelly words slip into each other. The story changed a little every time. He always expected a proper ending, but he never got one. And now he pauses, takes out the photograph of his father's father and Carmelo Trapani and Jacopo Sartori in Tilbury Dock, October 1936. His blood courses a little faster, and his mind becomes clear. "25. Pennington hands Staffe the 3 files and leans back. As Staffe flicks through the papers, Pennington feels the cases and the criminals from all down the years pressing down on him, as if the ether is heavy with paper and dark souls. One file contains the original immigration papers for Maurizio Verdetti, the grandfather of Maurice Green, who arrived in England on the 7th of September, a couple of weeks before Carmelo Trapani and Jacopo Sartori. Maurizio, born in Palermo, just like Carmelo. In another file, the births and deaths of all the families are detailed. In a third and final file, the academic records of Morris himself, there being no criminal records, nor employment history. He doesn't own a car, has never troubled the revenue. "Has Rimmer seen these?" asked Staffe. "Don't you worry about Rimmer. Stay focused on finding Carmelo Trapani. While Rome burns." "What?" "Ah, Pulford. There's news, I'm afraid. We have a date for trial." "He can't be going to trial." "The evidence is all one way, Will. Maybe this will shake the tree and he'll spill some beans. Internal investigations have done all they can to help him, believe me." "Bollocks! They're hanging him out to dry, trying to show we're whiter than white. He's being threatened, for God's sake." "He hasn't filed a complaint. Internal investigations sent a man down there, but Pulford refused to speak to him. They killed his mother's dog." "Can you prove that?" "Brandon Latimer is back in circulation. It's only a matter of time before he gives himself away. We've already cited him with the mother of Jadis's child. He wanted Jadis out of the way. His lawyer will say it is a tryst born of loyalty and shared grief. It's not uncommon. My arse. The CBS are prepared to play ball. Everybody wants a swift conclusion." "You're not talking about a deal." "It's what's best for Pulford. You know, it's like tinder out there on the estates. We can't have another summer 11 on our hands. Well, not with people's careers at stake. Look, Will, if Pulford didn't do it and he's holding out on us for whatever reason, he's bringing this on himself. Don't blame me. Don't blame anyone else. I'll blame the people who killed Jadis Golding, and I'll catch them. If you'd forgotten, that's what we're supposed to do. Pulford didn't kill Golding. You can't know that." Staffe doesn't want to tell Pennington, but knows he has to. Every hour he delays, the greater the repercussions will become. We've seen the gun. The E-gang has the gun. It's a Browning, the one Golding used on me. Where the hell is it? They have it. How'd you know this? I told you to stay away. We just know it, sir. We've seen it. We? What, you and Rimmer? I can't believe Rimmer would transgress like this. Not Rimmer, sir. Ah, your precious Chancellor. It's nothing to do with her. It was my call. Where the hell is this gun? Chancellor touched it, sir. The E-gang have it. They have the murder weapon, and it has Chancellor's prints on it. Sweet Jesus, man! We need a warrant, sir. I'll be the bastard judge of that. Pennington stands, turns his back on Staffe. His shoulders rise and fall, and his hands hang by his sides in tight fists. You need to get out of here, Staffe. Take those papers and bring me Carmelo Trapani. Something for the front pages. Don't be so bloody facetious. We all want the same thing, including Pulford. I should never have brought you back. Staffe tries to stand, but the breath in his throat gushes away and nothing comes in its stead. He gasps, sucking at the air. He reaches for the desk and hears Pennington say something. He puts the other hand on the desk and bends double, gulping air. For a moment his lungs won't work, and the blood in his body seems to stall. He makes an almighty effort, sucking at the air, and finally it comes. It rushes into him like the ocean, and he stands double, feels his belly clench. "What the hell's wrong, man?" says Pennington. Staffe's heart batters at his skin now, and in his gut he is sick. Sick of what might happen to Pulford. "I heard you've not been so good. You'd better see someone." Staffe goes to the washroom, leans on the basin and splashes water onto his face. He tries to get his brain working, but it stalls, keeps coming back to the mirror. He calls Josie, but there's no reply. Staffe puts a hand to his heart again. All alone with just tiles and mirrors, he watches Josie's name fade from his phone, and his fingers work away of their own accord until a voice comes to him. It is a voice he has loved, his last resort. "What time is it?" Sylvie sounds drowsy, and he pictures her smudged smile. He says, "I'm in trouble. Can we meet? Please?" A line of inmates walk across from the wings to gym and workshop. There is something weird about the light today. A light mist in the air, and the sun paints unlikely halos around the hunched shapes of the cons. Pulford has been watching the day since its first tweet of dawn. For hours the place has chirruped, from window to window, dragging him down. This is not going to get any better. His first thought when he woke had been the trial. Last night, his brief had told him the Crown is very confident of a conviction now. There is apparently a collective will to see this put to bed, and he pictured himself being led up by a colleague, a look of disappointment in the officer's eyes. He had been expecting it for weeks, but it was still a punch to the belly. He spent most of the night up and down to the toilet, squatting on its cold steel rim, coming up empty, but his guts twisting. 2 raps at the door, and he steps away from the window. He hears a low murmur of voices, and the bolt is shot. The door opens, revealing Beef. For a moment, Beef looks as if he really doesn't want to be there. And then his expression tightens, and his eyes come to life. in a bad way. "I'm like your copy of the Daily fucking Mail. Got some news for ya." He advances towards Pulford. "I already heard. I've got a court date." "You've got a date with a Grim Reaper is what you've got. You can't do life, Pulford. You're a pussy." Beef is in his face now, standing toe-to-toe. "I won't be doing life." "There's new evidence." "Oh, you're a lawyer now, are you?" "Don't be fucking clever, you pussy." When Beef says pussy, he showers a light spray of spittle in Pulford's face. His breath is rank, and it makes Pulford want to heave. "But they got new stuff on that gun, see? That gun with your prints on it? Well, that's in the fucking evidence now. They call it discovery, you know. That whole scene of sharing what everybody knows. I know my law, and I can tell you that gun, the one that's going to shoot you in the face, I can explain how those prints got there. Your prints are not the only ones on that gun, is what they just discovered. Brandon's are on it. Course they are. Everyone knows Jaders came running to Brandon when he shot your mate. But how did that pretty little copper get her dabs on my man's weapon?" "What?" "She's a fine piece of pig, that Chancellor. How do you think she got her fingers on my man's heat?" "She had nothing to do with Jadis Golding. It was me. Just me." "The two of you were in it together. Why else would she have her prints on the gun?" "I was working alone." "You're going to have to convince the judge. Not me," says Beef, who must see something he didn't bargain for in Pulford's eyes, because he steps back and taps the door. Crawshaw appears. Beef backs out of the door, saying, "You're going to have to do what we say. You best listen up." Pulford rushes at Beef, but Crawshaw steps across, catches him across the jaw with an elbow. Pulford crashes to the deck and looks up, watches them retreat. He tries to get up, to have another go, but his legs have gone, and Crawshaw closes the door, shoots the bolt for what sounds like a final time. But Pulford doesn't feel that lucky. It might just be the last day of the long summer, and Staffe sits in a deck chair by the open-air swimming pool at London Fields. He wants to get into Morris Green's place, but not until the soccers are all done. He also wants to have heard back from the Polizia in Syracuse. A bloke in a suit chats with another fellow in a Hawaiian shirt and combat shorts. They both have sunglasses on, and they each call out to their children every now and again. Staffe wonders how a child might fit into a grown person's life. He never really understood how it did for his own father. The two men seem to be making friends, and each takes out a handset and taps in some data. They exchanging numbers? He pictures the two of them maybe doing a bit of spliff, or going to a game, and the delight that would ensue when their partners also rub along quite nicely. His phone beeps, and he watches as the message comes up. First the text, then the picture. But the glare from the sun obscures the image, so Staffe puts the handset up his shirt and peers down at the screen, inside his shirt. It's clear enough, this photo they have sent at the click of a button from the southeastern tip of Sicily. It will be less fuzzy when he sees it on his desktop, but even in this light, the truth is crystal clear. "The fuck you up to? Fucking pervert?" Staffe pulls his head out of his shirt, looks up at the new friends in the suit and Hawaiian shirt bearing down on him. Their children stood by the edge of the pool, shivering. "I was looking at a picture," says Staffe. "Call the police, Marcus," says the one in the suit. "I'll keep hold of the cunt." His suit is 800 quid. The accent, pure Canning Town. Staffe knows they're not the enemy, but he stands up and shrugs the man off, holds out his warrant card like it's mace. "I'm police. Sorry." He looks at the two children. One is afraid, the other is loving it. "I'm so sorry." "26. On his way to Morris's flat, Staffe replays how strangely pleased Sylvie was to hear from him. She said something about fate that didn't really make sense to him, and how nice it was that they could chat like adults, and it would be lovely to get together. The Sockos have dusted every inch of Morris's flat, and his writing desk has a stack of clear plastic evidence bags, numbered. The head of the team points to an index tabulation of fingerprints, says, "Carmelo Trapani's prints are in the lounge, kitchen and bathroom, and so are Miles Hennigan's." "Hennigan? What the hell would he be doing here?" says Staffe, looking at Tatiana. Tatiana shrugs. Staffe looks at the summary of items: an old mobile phone with a SIM card bagged separately, an Oyster card, a pair of boots with mud dry to their soles, and an SLR digital camera with its memory card separately bagged. He says to Tatiana, "We'll need to see your phone and your Oyster card." "I need them." "I'll bring them back as soon as I can. I promise." Tatiana opens her handbag, disgruntled in a theatrical way. As she looks for her Oyster card, the head Socko says, "And you might want to see this." He takes the photo memory card from its evidence bag, puts it into his laptop, and a fast reel of images scrolls down the screen, eventually settling on a sequence of Staffe at Carmelo's house, and two of him coming out of Ledengate Station. "These are Morris Green's." "Yes, sir." Staffe points to one image, says, "This is the one Jacopo Sartori had." Josie appears from the kitchen, holding a clear plastic bag with a pair of boots in it. "We've just got a match, sir. The mud is from Carmelo's place, and there's a matching imprint, too." Rimmer says, "He wouldn't take Carmelo. He's too fond of the old boy." "Yet you think it was Attilio, his own son," says Staffe. "There's no love lost there, and Attilio knew he was being squeezed out." "But there's nothing for him in the will," says Staffe. "Ah." Rimmer reaches into his pocket, pulls out a folded piece of paper. "Your friend Martin Goldman sent this through. It's a petition from Attilio Trapani and Helena Ballantyne to nullify the last will and testament of Carmelo Trapani. He told me he would do the honourable thing and not go digging out the past. This isn't Attilio, this is Helena's doing. She needs to keep Ockingham Manor. She doesn't want A.B. Myers getting his hands on it." "How would Myers get his hands on Ockingham?" "He already has a stake in it through Blackfriars, Rimmer. Do your homework." Staffe turns to Tatiana. "Does Morris have a passport?" "Of course. We love to travel." Staffe says to the Socko, "But it's not here." "We've been through every pocket and every drawer." Staffe looks through Tatiana's bag, sees her passport, and says to the Socko, "Make sure you bag this passport and the Oyster and her phone." He ushers Tatiana out of the flat. "You'll get your things back when we find Morris." "What if you don't find him?" "Then you should get a decent lawyer. In fact, get yourself one anyway." "Don't worry," says Tatiana, staring hard at Staffe. She doesn't blink, and he is first to look away. "We have one." She makes her way onto the street, turning towards Kingsland Road. Staffe has to be at the St. John in Spitalfield for 12 noon to meet Sylvie, and woe betide him if he is late. Tatiana disappears round the corner towards the overground, and Staffe legs it to the corner in time to see Tatiana climbing the steps to the overground platform. As he follows her, he thinks about Attilio, the digging up of the past, and the image they sent from Siracusa. Louis Considine punches his own chest. His heart is burning from all that fried chicken and overproof cider, and Layla is still passed out on the mattress on the floor. No matter how hard he shakes her, Layla won't wake up. Whilst he slept, she had finished off their crack. He loves her so much it's fucked up, but sometimes he wishes she wasn't so full on. Sometimes Louis wishes he could do what his brother Curtis says, ditch the bitch. A couple of weeks ago, Curtis went round to see Layla, told her to sling it. But the other day, she texted Lou back, even though she's a year older and could have anyone she wanted. Curtis doesn't get her, and neither do the rest of his mates. Sometimes Layla isn't a bitch, and he sees the bits of her that she can't reveal to the world, and it's this that makes him forgive all her sins. He puts the sole of his Nike Shox on her shoulder and rocks her. She grunts, turns over, shows her backside because all she is wearing is a bra. Her hair is matted, and she has drooled in her sleep. When Brandon pays him off for getting that policewoman's dabs on the gun, he will take Layla away, get clean. But first he has to sort Curtis. They have a plan, and it all relies on Curtis keeping his nut down, studying and getting that job. Louis checks Layla's purse and counts out her money. She's got £7, an E, and a wrap of MDMA for when she comes round. Louis knows how much he's got. Fuck all. He looks down on the gasworks and all the way across the Isle of Dogs to the Naval College. He's so high he thinks he might see the sea. It's Layla's sister's place. She's doing a bit of time in Holloway at the moment, but she told him once she could see the sea from her place in the Baltron. This isn't his manor, and he's scared to go out, unsure where he stands round here, and he wonders when Brandon will come. They need food and nourishment. Some weed, maybe. No more crack, not yet. Maybe a bit of Valium or Tam. Christ, now he hopes Layla won't wake up because she'll be a nightmare. And then he looks at her peach. He lies next to her and feels her soft skin, and just now that seems like it might be enough. He'll be 16 in 2 weeks. That's a game changer, and he wishes he was young again. He holds Layla tight, just wanting her to hold him. He puts his hand to her guinea. It's stubbled. She says she shaves it for him, but he doesn't care about that. He just wants her to say something right into his ear, soft and warm and not dirty. Tatiana is in the next carriage, and Staffe sits on the same side as her, so she won't clock him if she looks over. A group of loud young girls gets onto Tatiana's carriage at Haggerston, which means he can steal glimpses of Tatiana, jaw set, as if she knows precisely what she's doing. As they pull into Dalston, Tatiana beckons one of the girls over to her, an Asian with dyed pink Mohican hair. She offers a £20 note to the girl, and a commotion seems to ensue. Eventually, the girl with the Mohican hands Tatiana her phone, and the other girls form a semicircle around her. But Tatiana says something to make the girls back off. The Soccos kept Tatiana's mobile phone, so she must be telephoning a number that's in her own memory. Tatiana finishes her call, and the girls shift to block the doors. So she hands over another note, presumably for a second call. The train slows into Canonbury, and Tatiana moves to the doors, not giving the handset back. And when the girl reaches out for her phone, Tatiana, despite the fact that she is outnumbered 5-1 and these girls seem equipped to handle themselves, shows the back of her hand to the girl as if she might slap her. And the girls move away as one. Tatiana steps out, ending her call and tossing the phone into the carriage so it skids along the floor. Staffe checks his watch. It is 20-12, and he has to be back in Shoreditch for noon. 2 of the 5 girls want to get off and slap Tatiana. The other 3 don't fancy it. Tatiana turns her back and walks quickly to the escalators. The train beeps, and the doors begin to slide. Staffe has to decide. He could follow Tatiana and see where she's going. It might simply be to see a friend, or it might be to meet Morris, or even Carmelo. But he knows that if he lets her go and throws in his lot with a group of girls, he can see who Tatiana has called. He wishes he had the data from her Oyster card, which will confirm if Canonbury is a regular haunt, but he has to decide. The door slides. The train jolts away, and he watches Tatiana go in her short fur jacket and her soft leather boots. He walks to the girls, says, "I'm police, and I need to see that phone." The girl with the phone says, "I've fucking done nothing." "I know, but I need to see that phone." "You can frisk me if you want," says another girl, and the rest of them snigger. Staffe checks his watch again, plucks the phone from the girl and jots down Leadengate's address, tells her she can pick it up tomorrow, or they'll send it round to her house if she prefers. "My dad'll fucking kill me if there's filth to the house." At Highbury and Islington, Staffe steps off as the train pulls away, and the girls mimic fellatio and give him the finger. The Overground skims Staffe back into the East End, and as he comes into Haggerston, running late for his lunch appointment, he has a sense of looking at London through a different lens, directly into lives suspended above the streets. In new conversions that back onto the lines, he watches an old trendy at a stove, a young couple rising from their sheets, a middle-aged woman hunkering over an analogue typewriter. He looks at the 2 numbers which Tatiana had called, a mobile and a Brighton landline. He texts the numbers to John, and when it's sent, he looks at the image that Syracuse police had sent. A brutish youth, tall with a shock of black hair and a broken nose, from a bygone era. When the doors open at Hoxton, a church somewhere near chimes noon. He paces up and down the carriage, already late, waiting for Shoreditch, and when they get there, Staffe runs to Spitalfields, starting off at what was his usual pace, before the shooting, but is soon out of breath, bent double and wheezing before he can even see the market. Is his heart too weak to pump the blood? Is he simply out of condition? He gets to the St. John in Spitalfield at 12:20, and Sylvie is paying the waiter for her drink. When she sees Staffe, she packs her phone and magazine into her bag, stands, and puts on her coat. It is a light mustard-coloured Mac he bought her 3 birthdays ago. "Don't even say it, Will." He puts a hand on her forearm, says, "Please." The waiter returns with her change. "Don't let me spoil it. The soft-shell crabs are the best in London. At least have those, and then go." He turns to the waiter. "Am I right?" The waiter gives Sylvie a lopsided, apologetic look. "He's right. They are the best. They're very good with Chablis." He winks at her. "I have a premier cru." They both laugh, and Staffe says, "A bottle of that, then." A silence develops. Eventually, Sylvie says, "Have you seen a doctor?" "What do you mean?" "I popped into the station. I had a client at Frankers Bank. It's only around the corner. You went into the station and I ran into that woman you work with, the pretty one. She said she was worried about you and said if I spoke to you perhaps I could have a word. She's no right. Not unless she cares about you. Don't be a bloody idiot, Will. Now, have you seen the doctor? There's no need. Well, I'm not here to bang my head against your brick wall. God knows I've enough brain damage from that already. The waiter brings the Chablis. Tell me about David. He's going to be all right, isn't he? I thought so, but lately he's giving in, and I know what that can look like to a jury. You don't think he did it, do you? Staffe shakes his head. But you haven't got another suspect. Everyone's treading on eggshells. I can't say too much. But you've got to do your best for him. Staffe hisses. Don't you think I know that? Sylvie raises both her hands, palms facing him, and for a while they each look around the light, high-ceilinged dining room. Bleached wood and a lively young crowd. He says, Have you been seeing anybody? Sylvie nods. She closes her eyes as she drinks the Chablis, says, This is divine. I forgot about your good points. Who is he? He was kind, and he loved me. He asked me to marry him, in fact. What? It's only a couple of years since she wore Staffe's ring. So now I'm not seeing anybody. She laughs feebly. Sylvie replenishes her own glass, takes another sip. She drinks nervously, is out of character. Are you all right, Syl? Not really. What's wrong? You fucked me up, Will. This man I was with, he was everything I should want. He's got his own business and he's young, honest and reliable. What business does he have? Why would it matter? Sylvie drains her glass and pours herself another. Looks past Staffe, watching people on the street. A couple of hip young mothers talk with toddlers at their feet and babies in buggies. Beyond them, trendy Spitalfields spins round at 1,000,000 miles an hour. She seems unfocused. Says, almost under her breath, He isn't you. You don't want me, he says. Sylvie raises a napkin, covers her face. Her shoulders rise and fall and she sighs heavily. The crabs arrive, and she remains like that until the waiter is gone. She removes the napkin from her face, and her eyes are pink, but she has a forced smile upon her face. No, I don't want you, and sometimes that means I can't have anything, and that... Her chin trembles. That's just not bloody fair. It's not fair, Will. I didn't do anything to deserve this. I didn't do anything but love you. I loved you. Not enough. I thought I did.
End of Disc 5. Disc 6.
Sylvie looks out of the window again. She has parted her hair on the side, and it makes her cheekbones seem wider, like a dark, young Debbie Harry, he thinks. What about you? She says, still looking into the street. What about the pretty policewoman, Josie? He shakes his head. Not since you. Not really. Not really? What does not really mean? You know. I'll be 34 in a couple of weeks. What do you want for your birthday? He smiles at her. I'm getting old. Maybe we could go for dinner. I don't think so. But I know what I want. Tell me. I want a baby, Will. My pleasure, he laughs. She looks him in the eye. She doesn't laugh, and he soon stops. They eat the crabs, and Sylvie finishes the chablis. She says, "You're right, they are the best. Let's have some more." Staffe orders more crabs, and asks for another glass of chablis each. And when the chablis comes, he raises his glass, and Sylvie touches his with hers. She is glassy-eyed, and he remembers a few of the things she has forgiven him. His heart aches at the thought of her being unhappy, and he recalls the times they talked about one day having a family. He blew that. He says, "Let's do it." "Don't say that just because you don't want to see me sad. Don't think you owe me, Will." "I don't." "You need to think about it." "I want to be a father." "We wouldn't be together." "I want to be a father." "We'd rely on you for certain things." Sylvie reaches across and puts her hand on his wrist. She is shaking. "You really want to do this?" Her voice cracks. "You can't let me down again." 27. "I saw Sylvie," says Josie. "I know." Staffe snatches the pile of papers from her. On top, the Potter biography of Maurice Greene. "You shouldn't have said anything." She looks hurt. "I was trying to be a friend, sir. We care about you." "We?" Josie busies herself at the coffee machine in the corridor outside his office. "I'm sorry," he says, "but I'm okay." She turns around, says, "No, you're not." And she walks away without a drink, leaving Staffe to the dossier on Maurice Greene. Greene was born in Palermo, March 1982. His parents were Nicoletta Cotanesta and Claudio Verdetti. Claudio Verdetti was born in City Royal Hospital 1937 and was therefore 45 when Maurice was born. Maurice's mother, Nicoletta, was 17 when Maurice was born, and she died when he was 7. Thereafter, Maurice was in the care of his father until Claudio drowned while swimming off Cefalù, when Maurice was 13. Maurice tried and failed to save his father. Claudio's own father, Maurizio, died in October 1936 in London, and he is buried in the Church of St. George in the East, Cable Street. Staffe flicks through the facsimiles of the source documents. Every now and again he rubs his temples, trying to get things straight in his head. After Claudio drowned, Maurice entered the guardianship of Carmelo Trapani and was schooled at Stonyhurst in Lancashire. He later graduated in English from York University. Staffe goes through each document again, ends up with ruffled hair and a thick head. Amidst all the papers, one fact announces itself with a hazy familiarity. Staffe taps away at his keyboard, and his suspicions are confirmed. Maurizio Verdetti died on the 4th of October 1936, the very day of the Battle of Cable Street. A.B. Myers' thick eyebrows pinch together, and his large lips slant into a snarl. His old face seems younger today, and it seems that the rising bile is good for him. Because when Staffe enters the drawing-room to his house in Stepney Green, the old fellow is quick to his feet, saying, "I don't know what the hell gives you the right to treat me like a criminal. Look at this." He gestures at a scene of crime officer still sifting his way through A.B.'s life. In the corner, Miles Hennigan stands with his arms crossed over his chest, looking at Staffe. unblinking. The judiciary seem to think we have sufficient grounds to look more deeply at you. Staffe approaches Aby and says, so just the two of them can hear, maybe you should take a walk if you're finding this too traumatic. What in God's name do you expect to find? Hisses Aby. Tell me about Maurizio. You mean Morris? I mean what I say, Maurizio Verdetti. If Carmelo is alive, you should be trying to find him, not wasting my time. Staffe turns his back on Aby. Inside this house, the way Aby has kept it, the years might not have roared by. Right here, you could be back where you wanted to be. He says, when did Darren's go? You don't know Darren's, says Aby. Bread shop and bakery, says Staffe. I have this hunger for knowledge, history. So I know that Maurizio Verdetti would have known little of your beloved Cable Street. It killed him after all. Just a month or so after he came here from Carmelo's hometown. They were cousins, you know. And Maurizio's grandson became Carmelo's ward, Morris. I really do think you and I should take a walk. Staffe says to the Socco, have you found Maurice Green's prints here? Yes, sir. Carmelo's? Yes, sir. Staffe takes out the phone which he had taken from the girl on the overground. He scrolls down to the mobile number she last called and presses green. All eyes are on him, and he holds up the phone and says, I don't even know who this belongs to, but... Miles Hennigan blinks. He reaches for his pocket like a gunslinger, but he's too late on the draw. First, everyone hears the low buzzer vibrate, then the ringtone. Miles looks at the phone, so small in his large hands. Hadn't you better answer that? Later, says Miles. Don't mind us, says Staffe. What's going on? Says Aby, looking daggers at Miles Hennigan. The phone rings and rings, then stops. And Staffe presses green again, and Miles's phone begins to ring once more. The Socco laughs, and Staffe says, Come on, Aby, let's take that walk. As he leaves, passing Miles Hennigan, he says under his breath so only Miles can hear, I call the tunes from now on. You better be a bit quicker with your answering. Aby and Staffe walk past the Ashbury Youth Boys Club to the Green, from where London seems spread flat all the way to Canary Wharf. Aby twiddles his cane in the air on the offbeats. The sun is out and the sky is cloudless. Up above, the white vapours from traffic in and out of City Airport trail the blue sky. There was none of that when you first came, says Staffe, indicating the sky. Plenty's changed. Aby jabs at Canary Wharf, an oblong of nothing but money and a triangle on top. It looks near and modest, but is actually far away and not. Progress? Bah! What happened to Maurizio, Aby? How would I know? You employ his grandson. Morris is a numbers man. He's a genius is what he is, but I am not his family historian. Is he with you or Carmelo? Why should it be a case of or? I can't make him out, you know. He seems to have a fine life, gambling and consuming the arts, and now Carmelo bequeaths him half his home. Staffe stops in the shadow of the 4-storey tenements on Cable Street. Where was Panner's, Aby? Panner's? Darren's? What is it with you and the past? I have a feeling. I think you know what I mean. I don't give a damn for your feelings. Shouldn't you be trying to find Carmelo? Would you be happy if we were to find him? I don't care one jot for that money he left me, if that's what you mean. I know, A.B. This has nothing at all to do with money. Except Carmelo knew we would follow the money to get to something higher than money. He nods at Canary Wharf. Higher? Your hold over Jacopo Sartori intrigues me. You talk in riddles. I had to put a man on his door because he's afraid of you. A train rattles past above them, rollicking west to the tower. Well, you can take him off. That's an absurdity. They pause by the Crown and Dolphin pub, its Mo Ales livery all spotted and faded to almost nothing. Each looks up at the mural of the riots. Police horses rising up on their hind legs, black shirts with venom in their eyes, and the people standing steadfast. Leagues of Jews and communists, shoulder to shoulder. A.B. stabs his cane again up the road, says, That's where Panner's Dairy was. I would go every day. What exactly were you and Carmelo doing in those days? I didn't know him so well then. I'd bet my bottom dollar you were into illegal gambling. A.B. laughs. That might be a good bet. But I do believe there's a statute of limitations on misdemeanors like that. This makes Staffe consider the legality, after all these years, of prosecuting buried crimes. It's all a question of reasonable doubt. The passage of time makes that difficult, but we can put it in the hands of the Crown if the evidence is there. We covered our tracks quite nicely. Evidence can be durable. As you will discover, I went into property. Completely respectable. Carmelo was the same. Staffe says, and now he rewards you in his will. He shines a light on you, doesn't he, A.B.? He shines 20 million watts right down on you to put you centre stage. And then there is Blackfriars Holdings, you helping out Attilio, getting a chunk of that blue-blooded Britain. That must feel good. But only a month ago, Carmelo sold his stake in Blackfriars, didn't he? It doesn't add up. They're outside St. George's Town Hall now, with its plaque declaring no pasaran, in memory of the many who went on from Cable Street to defend democracy in the Spanish Civil War. Staffe leads them into the gardens at the back of St. George in the east. Through the great arching oaks, they look past a row of enormous gravestones leaning against a wall, like soldiers enjoying tobacco between exchanges. The church of St. George looks French, with its octagonal nave, but it was bombed, and in its place is a smaller church, like a Russian doll, which sets Staffe thinking, and he studies the dates on the gravestones, says, You know, sometimes it feels as though Carmelo's disappearance is like a Russian doll. Enough with your riddles. A crime within a crime is what I'm thinking. What if I have to discover something far beyond his disappearance to solve his disappearance? A.B. says, Let's get on our way. I have plenty to do. You know, the closer you get, the more there is to do. You're good for a few years yet, I'd say. It's not the time that's left that... A.B.'s words trail in the air, and his eyes become milky. The old man opens his mouth to say something, but bites his lip. It's what you leave behind, says Staffe, pointing to a gravestone. Maurizio Verdetti, 1914 to 1936. He died that others might thrive. A.B. says, I heard something of this fellow. It seems so long ago it was a different age, thank God. You might hear people reminisce, but it was hard then, a bad time through and through. You know, people can say what they like about the modern age and the violence, but I wouldn't have those times back. It was so So hard. He wipes his eyes and peers at Maurizio's grave. Staffe says, he was a cousin of Carmelo's. He'd have been asking for trouble, I dare say. Trouble? They didn't care about what happened to us, those Italian boys. They were having their day in the sun. A free hit, they say now. Just like those awful kids the other summer when they rioted. The kids in 36 threw pepper in the horses' eyes and rolled marbles under the hooves. Everyone was packed so tight. We kept being told this and that about where the fascists would be and where they were coming from. It turned out to be a grand day, but it could have been different. History plays its tricks, but you know that, don't you, Inspector? I know there were casualties in the crowds, and I read about what they did to the police horses. Both men look at the headstone again, that others might thrive. Maurizio was trampled underfoot by the very horses he was goading. That's what I heard. You were here that day. A.B. looks away. Where else would I be? He turns his back on the church. These places give me the willies. Staffe watches him trundle off, back the way he came, through the past and out the other side onto Cable Street. A group of youths huddles beneath one of St. George's oaks, passing around a bag, washing it down with super-strength cider. As A.B. passes them, they say something, and he goes for them with his cane. They stand up, and Staffe walks slowly across, but whatever A.B. said makes them disperse. They look afraid. 28. Attilio opens the bathroom window and steam rushes out. The sky is pink, the day nearly done. Beyond the gallops, he sees the horse box being towed home from Goodwood. They had a winner today. As a result, there is a fat wad of 20s on the federal dressing table in his bedroom next door. Funny, he might have had to sell the federal to pay the lad's wages if the deal with Blackfriars hadn't gone through. Earlier, he took 500 down to Rodney to put behind the bar for the lads and lasses. Rodney said, "Thank you," but with sorry in his eyes. Then he had insisted they had a large one together. It seems everyone was on Gemstone. He rubs a porthole in the steam on the mirror and dabs his face with cologne. He has shaved twice, the way he always has since Helena first put her hand to his face and said, "You have a fine jaw, a jaw to die for, but you prickle me." Dominic Ballantyne had been there, at Cowdray Park, and Helena dragged her fingers down his back, whilst her husband looked him dead in the eye, saying, "You must come to Ockingham." He always liked Dominic. A week later, Dominic had a pair of ponies off him, and before long Attilio was coming to Ockingham once a week, discussing with Dominic and Helena his grand plans to establish a yard, to begin training as well as breeding and trading horses. And not long after, he was visiting Ockingham 3 times a week, but when Dominic was not there. He dips his fingers in the pomade and patters his hair, draws a comb through, slipping for a short while into a trance, within which he realizes that when a man has almost everything he wants, those last inches can kill you. And they will. Tonight. Lately, Helena doesn't even tell him when she's going to be away. A month ago, she took a room in the oldest Jacobean part of the house. She said his snoring was keeping her awake. He doesn't snore. Many men say this, he knows, but one night when she was away, he paid the gardener to sit in the corner whilst Attilio slept. And now he knows he doesn't snore. Earlier, When he had just got back from Goodwood and was booking entries in the office, Attilio's heart had slumped when he heard the tyres of her car in the gravel, leaving. Without her, he is nothing more than an impostor here. Helena was born to rule, and this seat will cushion her nicely long after he is gone. With Fard, she will be able to stop A.B. Myers taking the place, if that was his game. She has an imperious instinct for survival, even though it had faltered that day at Cowdray when she chose Attilio. But now she is back on form. Fard Jarmud would have sent shockwaves through the country a couple of decades ago. But times change. He puts on his Bengal striped shirt and selects the silver links that Helena had brought for him when he had his first winner. One is a cap, and the other a whip. He steps into his oxblood moleskins, pulls on the hacking jacket, and finally dons a riding helmet clad in his father's silks. He hopes the casing of the helmet will keep everything in. The hand-painted wallpaper is from Milan, cost 300 quid a roll. It's vintage, from when she loved him. The gun cabinet was a wedding gift from Jacobo. He can't remember what his father got him, perhaps nothing, but Jacobo was proud that Attilio had managed to marry so deep into the heart of everything English. The boy might have killed his mother, but with the marriage to Helena Ballantyne, Attilio thought he was giving the old man the benediction he always craved. Instead, it was treated as betrayal. Attilio has long arms, a good thing for the task in hand. He breaks the Mossberg and loads each barrel with its 1/12 of a bore. Out of habit, he looks down the barrels, then locks it, holding it aloft and turning it on himself, placing the end of the barrels in his mouth. The metal is bitter and cold on his teeth and tongue. His heart beats fast, and he takes the gun out of his mouth. He pulls Helena's pillows across to his side and lays down again, head propped up. Tatiana is lost without her phone. She's tried Morris from a payphone, but he's not answering. Looking up at the window, she's not sure whether to go ahead, or to come back another day when the instructions are clearer. Miles Hennigan said to go ahead, but she isn't entirely sure he is to be trusted. She knows his type, ex-military. He's cold behind the eyes, not like Morris, who is full of warmth and love and humanity. She checks up and down the quiet road and lets herself in by pressing the code into the keypad by the door. It is what Morris would want, she's sure. The place smells of vanilla, and this makes her smile. Morris has the vanilla plugins at home and the perfumed oil, and also the reed diffuser. He's done the same here. On the top flight of stairs, she hears him stir within, and this freezes her to the tread she is on. She looks at the door, wary. After a second or two, she pushes off, taking a hold of the newel post, and then reaching out, putting the key to the Yale lock she and Morris fitted. The house belongs to an owner Morris knows from Dubai, and the lock isn't an issue. Tatiana had wondered what hold Morris has over the man. The room is dark. They screw the Georgian shutters closed, and she puts on a small lamp, goes to the chair he is in, smells that he has soiled himself. She puts her hand to his cheek, says, "Sorry," even though she knows that he is responsible for a terrible, terrible thing. Tatiana removes the tape from his mouth as gently as she can. When it comes away, the tape has blood on it. "Hello, my dear," he says, his voice hoarse as hair. Tatiana sinks to her knees, says, "Sorry." "Good will come of this." She unties him, trying not to gag from the smell, and when she has finished, Carmelo gets very slowly to his feet.
I will clean myself. Then we shall have some dinner.
It is lunchtime.
I could eat a horse.
He tries to laugh, but his mouth and throat are too dry.
I can't face St. Peter on an empty stomach.
It's been difficult. The police, you know.
You didn't bring them. Why didn't you?
Not yet, she says, handing him a roll of kitchen paper and a tub of baby wipes. I'll get you some clothes. While Carmelo is busy in the bathroom, Tatiana cuts some bresaola and improvises some bruschetta by chopping olives from a jar and dicing the lone tomato from the fridge. The bread is stale, but she toasts it anyway. And throughout her preparations, the sound of Carmelo's coughing gets louder, deeper. She goes to the bathroom and calls through the door, "You need a doctor."
Then take me.
She knows, until Morris gives the word, she can't. Carmelo opens the door, cleaned up and shaved, his old clothes in a pile in the bag. He dabs cologne on his pudgy jowls and smiles with the certitude of someone who thinks he is saved.
When will Morris come? I'm not sure how much time I have.
As he speaks, Tatiana sees a line of blood, thin as thread, tracing the line between his teeth and his gums. Still, he smiles, like the mad, but she knows he isn't mad. 29. Mr. Crawshaw leads Pulford into the visits area. He says, 10 minutes and not a fucking second over. Staffe wants to collar Crawshaw and pin him to the wall, remind him that Pulford is a good guy who shouldn't even be here, and that they are, in this unwinnable battle between law and disorder, supposed to be on the same side. Crawshaw takes up a position between the door and the alarm bell, and puffs out his chest, chin up, lips sneering, holding his keys as if they're a weapon. Staffe couldn't wait to get out of his uniform when he was accepted into CID. He'd like to ask Crawshaw if he really wanted to be a copper but wasn't the right stuff. He says to Pulford, "Are you all set for court?" Pulford can't even meet Staffe's eye. Staffe lowers his voice, hisses, "It was Brandon Latimer, wasn't it? Brandon shot Jadis Golding." Pulford mumbles, "They haven't got enough on me." He looks up. "Have they?" "It's time to speak up. Tell us everything you know. Don't let them get this wrong." "They want me to plea." "We need another suspect, David. Throw us a bone." "I don't have any bones. I don't know who did it. But it wasn't Brandon Latimer." "What?" Crawshaw flinches, tightens up his stance and barks, "Keep it down!" He takes a step closer. "They've made me a good offer," says Pulford. "There's no such thing if you're innocent." "I'll be put into a soft jail within a couple of months. Out before I'm 40. People live to 100 now, don't they, sir? That's a whole life waiting for me." "But you're a copper. That will be over." Pulford leans forward, says, "What's in the bag?" Staffe takes out the papers, gives Crawshaw an index of the contents, says, "Governor number 2 approved them. Look, there's his signature." Crawshaw sneers. "Plenty time for your studies now." Pulford leafs through the papers greedily. "Wow! This is all about Sabini and the razor gangs. Illegal books were a license to print money, and all kinds of operations from different backgrounds carved up the action.
They learn to coexist in peace and harmony.
Pulford smiles, looks more like himself, as if he can be content in this parallel life of papers and books. How's it going with Carmelo? I came across one of his cousins today, a chap called Verdetti, Maurizio Verdetti. Verdetti, says Pulford. Staffe turns over some of the papers in Pulford's pile, shows him the photograph of an angelic young man beaming into camera, wearing a yarmulke and an easy smile. Have you come across this fellow? A.B. Myers. Is this to do with Carmelo Trapani? The Italians and the Jews worked together, didn't they? That's time, says Crawshaw. 5 more minutes. No way. Crawshaw takes a step to his left, within reaching distance of the alarm. Pulford taps the photo of A.B. Myers. A.B. Myers. You're sure it's A.B.? Dead sure. It rings a bell, the Myers name. They were gangsters, right? Perfectly respectable now, says Staffe. He's got holding companies all over the tax-free world. There's another Myers, a David Myers. He had a run-in with Sabini. Time! Shouts Crawshaw. Do you know about the new evidence? Pulford looks sheepish now, all the confidence draining away. He can't look at Staffe as he says, They've got the gun. Staffe feels sick with guilt, says, What do forensics say? Are there prints on it? We all know my prints are on the gun. And Josie's. How did they find the gun? And where? It was handed in by some dog walker, directly to the prosecution. You've got 5 seconds, says Crawshaw. Brandon Latimer got you to hold the gun, didn't he? Whispers Staffe. Crawshaw says, I warned you. He reaches across, and with a broad smile spreading across his face, he points a single finger at the alarm and presses. The bell is piercing. It drills bright and deep in the evening gloom, and the fast tramp of feet follows swiftly. Pulford leans forward, trying to get beneath the noise, says, Brandon is clean. Clean as a whistle, you hear? He says it as if someone's life is at stake. Attilio Trapani lies on his bed, counting the beams on the ceiling. There are 15, and he has moved the bed a few inches so he can lie directly beneath the 8th, where the chandelier hangs dead centre. He enjoys the sense of alignment. Again he puts the barrel to his mouth. It doesn't taste metallic any longer, and curiously, the longer he has been lying here, deliberating, the more ridiculous it seems to even attempt to persevere with life. It is absurd to continue when the odds are so heavily stacked against him, and death has been between him and his shadow since he ever took his first breath. In the same short moments his mother took her last. He removes the barrel, rests the Mossberg on his chest. In the absence of siblings, how could he have had siblings when he determined a life as an only child so irrevocably? Death has been like a brother to him all the years, which makes him think of Morris, left to fend for himself in Sicily, and up in Lancashire with the Jesuits, brought up on Claudio's tall tales of the mother country and the old East End. He thinks he hears a car, purring to nothing. Yes, once Morris's mother died and he was left in mad old Claudio's charge. The boy began his own journey of running towards the past, and a truth that reflects ill on everyone. This re-stiffens Attilio's resolve, so he picks the Mossberg off his chest a last time and holds it aloft, turning the stock away from him and opening his mouth, feeling for the barrel the way the young might blindly reach for the tit. Not that he ever did that. This time his heart knows it, beating in pitter-patters now. He puts his thumb to the trigger and pushes. The skin beneath his nail turns white from the pressure. He reaches further out and presses the trigger some more. Mary, Mother of God, this Mossberg pulls heavy. He makes the final press to the trigger, and he prepares for a light to blind him, for the pearls of lead to explode through the roof of his mouth, and to smell the shot and to taste smoke, and for the backs of his eyes to burn, and his brain to be wrested from itself, and blood and flesh to discharge into the riding helmet. The green and white and red of his father's colours, stolen from the Italian flag. And somebody comes into the room, he thinks. A door opens. A shaft of amber scrolls onto the bed, and Attilio can't help himself. He wrests the gun quickly away from his mouth, and the gun explodes. He feels a dull throb in his ear. Hears nothing at all. Helena is standing in the doorway. She looks like an angel. Her eyes are wide and her mouth is fast, but he can't hear what she shouts. She stoops, then reappears, holding a piece of skin. It looks for all the world as if it might be the pendant lobe of an ear. Then he sees a darkness, fears it is temporary. Josie is in the hand and shears with Connor, just like Jombo told Staffe she would be. They're leaning towards each other. She looks sad, and neither of them notices Staffe come in. He orders a pint of Adnams and mulls how he might break the news to her, that Pulford is being coerced into a plea bargain on account of her fingerprints on the gun, which has now miraculously appeared as part of the prosecution's evidence. But the words keep getting muddled. The conversation he just had with Sylvie in St. John is getting in the way. Did he really volunteer to father her child? Looking at Josie now, he can't see how he might navigate his way to such a union. Connor leans across and puts an arm around Josie, obscuring Staffe's view of her. She pushes him away, but he goes again, and she snaps at him. Behind the bar, April raises her eyebrows and nods her head sideways, encouraging Staffe to go across and intervene. But he bides his time. Josie's eyes are red, and Staffe thinks this is what the end of a relationship looks like. So he asks April to give Josie a note when she leaves. He writes, "Research Maurizio Verdetti death on day of Cable Street, 4th of October 36. And look for other deaths, especially a David Myers." Out on Cloth Fair he gets a cab, and within 5 minutes he's in a different world. The city has a ring of invisible portals, like so many railway arches to different dimensions. Perversely, you can pass easily from shiny to dark, like the bankers who slip down Shoreditch for a bit of the other. But try going the other way. It's nigh impossible. Just looking at the glimmering towers is enough to cast your life in shadow, which prompts an image of Curtis Considine at the LSE, 1,004 miles from the Limekiln estate. But with a key to the vault, it would seem. And this is why Staffe couldn't live without this job, living a life that constantly passes from one world to the other. This freedom of the city. The Limekiln Tower looms high. There are other towers that are taller, but none with such gravity in Staffe's world. Looking up from the Limekiln courtyard, he picks out Jasmine's flat, a peachy glow within. As he climbs the dark and echoing stairwell, he has the strongest feeling that he shouldn't be here. But what can he do? Regardless of Pennington's warnings, he needs to do whatever he can to find Louis Considine before Pulford stands up in court. He takes pause outside Jasmine's flat. It is eerie tonight on the lime kiln's deck. Nearby, someone hammers on a door, shouting, "Open up or I'll have you, you cunt!" They bang on the door some more, repeating the self-defeating pledge. On the first-floor deck, a family of Asians kneel on little mats. They fall forwards, hands outstretched, in unison, showing the way east. Staffe presses an ear to Jasmine's door. Hears a man's voice, but realises it is only Jamie Oliver. Staffe knocks on the door, takes a step back, prepares a smile. He needs to get in. The door opens. "You can fuck off," says Jasmine. "I have good news." A gust whips across the lime kiln, and Jasmine shivers, says, "Be quick." She looks at her watch. "You're letting the cold in." She stands back and immediately picks up Millie. She hugs her tight, as if the child might somehow keep her mother safe. "So, what's happened?" "I know who killed Jadis. They found a gun." "I heard. Got a copper's prints on." "And do you know how the prints got on there?" "Shootin' my Jay." "Why wouldn't they just rub the gun clean and get rid of it?" "'Cause coppers are fucking stupid, man, think they're above the law. Well, not anymore. This is time for justice. And if you cover this up, we won't take it, you know it." Staffe smiles at Millie and says to her mother, "There's a young man, a fellow called Louis Considine. He lives on the lime kiln, and I think he can help put away the person who did for your Jadis." "You got the man who did for my Jadis." "If Sergeant Pulford is guilty, then Louis can help us prove it." "You're shitting me." "You know where he is, don't you, Jasmine?" The door from the bedroom opens, and Brandon Latimer takes a step into the lounge. He hasn't bothered to put a shirt on, and is wearing just a pair of Sean Pauls, low as can be, and showing almost all of the V of his loins. When she sees him, Millie chortles and reaches out. He takes her. "Cosy," says Staffe. "You leave her alone." Brandon has knife wound scars above his heart and 2 on the opposite ribs. He has fresh stitches in a wound to his hip and 2 perfectly round hollows in his left shoulder, which are clearly old bullet wounds. He looks at Staffe as if he can't be damaged by him or his law. Staffe knows that Brandon has never done time. This is a man who knows his law. Millie, in his arms, snarls at Staffe, as if she knows wrong from right. Staffe says, "Jadis lost his nerve and shot a policeman. He'd become a liability, and you don't need someone like that. You certainly don't need to be cutting him in every month. How much was he costing you? 3, 4 grand a month?" Brandon sneers at Staffe. "You know shit." Staffe looks at Jasmine, but talks to Brandon. "And here you are, Millie's father still warm in his grave, if he is the father." "Watch your mouth," says Jasmine. "A man's entitled to follow his heart. Jasmine and me were always fond. We was together when we was neck high. Anyone can tell you that." He goes to Jasmine, hangs an arm over her shoulder. "I had the decency to wait till her man passed before I came here." Staffe's phone vibrates, and he sees it is Pennington texting, "You and Chancellor in my office, 9 a.m. Meeting with Commissioner. CSPD." CSPD, clean, sober, properly dressed. As he reads it, Brandon reaches into his pocket and Staffe flinches. Brandon smiles, wiggles his phone. He dials a number and says, "Police." "Yes, we have an intruder." "I'm going," says Staffe. "Shame," says Brandon. "Shame on you for coming in the first place," says Jasmine. On the way back into the city, Staffe picks up a copy of the news. Under a street lamp, he scrutinises the article which Nick Absalom has run on Carmelo Trapani. Absalom seems to be questioning where the case lies in the priorities of city police. Will it be a good day for bad crime? This case of the missing Carmelo Trapani occupies city police at a time when their resources are stretched beyond breaking. They already have a sergeant from Ledengate CID absent from the team, but that shouldn't be for too long. DS Pulford's case comes up for trial the day after tomorrow. Let's hope City can keep their eye on the ball. Or do they already know something that might keep their man off the front page? "Bastard," says Staffe, looking across the Old Street roundabout to that different world of drunken lunches and galloping deadlines where they make up the news. His phone beeps, and he checks another text message, this time from Josie. It says, "Come, Ledengate now. Attilio Trapani, suicide. Failed." 30. Pulford puts down his reading. Another day drawn almost to its close. He began studying the new Charles Sabini material after his lunch and turned dinner away. There is a pink and coral sky tonight, and he allows himself to briefly wonder if his mother might see the same from the kitchen window in Whitley Bay. These days count. Every day on remand will be docked from the time he has given him whatever deal they cut with the Crown. The plan is to try to come to an agreement before the trial starts. His barrister said they got you by the ball bag, and this, apparently, is the best deal he's ever seen in 26 years. Everybody really wants this, he had said, reminding Pulford that the new evidence makes a big difference. Pulford sits cross-legged on his bunk with the papers between his knees, piecing it together. All day he had been immersed in the East End's history, and eventually he came across what he was hoping for. A small-time criminal called Maurizio Verdetti came to London from Sicily in 1936. Rumour had it that the family back home wanted a piece of the bookmaking business. But before poor old Maurizio Verdetti could get close to sidling up alongside the likes of Charles Sabini, he was tragically trampled underfoot by horses during the Battle of Cable Street. Sabini and his boys were in the frame for the briefest time, but it took them only a day to verify that they were miles away, up at a race meeting in Pontefract. But, as Pulford read around the subject, looking into Sabini's biographies, it seems that it was only a matter of time before Sabini would have discouraged Maurizio in the most direct of fashions. Pulford goes to his index cards and checks that Sabini was also briefly questioned regarding the murder of a David Myers, but acquitted on account of his alibi. Referring to the original article, he says to himself, "Christ, small world." A small world in which, on that very same day Charles Sabini was racing in Pontefract, David Myers, another of his supposed competitors, was stabbed to death, this time on Brighton Racecourse. With more hope than expectation, he bangs on his cell door, calls out. Josie stares into the dark as they drive west along the A3. She wants tonight to be over, and tomorrow too. Can't bear the thought of explaining herself to the Commissioner. Word is, Pulford is seriously considering the deal he has been offered. Once they get signs for Guildford, Staffe bears left onto Ripley Lane, and the darkness drops a notch, their headlights illuminating the hedgerows and ditches. She says, "April gave me the note. You could have come over."
Could I?
Connor's all right, you know. Josie looks across at Staffe. But he's not for me. I don't know who is. This bloody job scuppers everything, doesn't it?
You broke up with him?
What do you care? You made it quite plain you didn't like him.
We need to talk about tomorrow and what we're going to say to the Commissioner.
I should be doing it on my own.
Staffe puts his hand on hers, says, I'm not coming as your boss. We're friends, right? I'll sit there nice and quiet. Just give me the nod if you want me to chip in. Otherwise, I'll say nothing.
Yeah, like that's going to happen. She laughs.
Well, you're the one with the wagging tongue.
Me? How?
What you said to Sylvie.
He takes his hand away, changing gear and turning sharply down an even narrower lane, following the beam.
So, what can we expect at Ockingham? Not a pretty sight, presumably.
Well, it can't be so bad. They discharged him from hospital. Bit of plastic surgery and he'll be okay, is what they said.
Not exactly Van Gogh, then.
His eardrum is the problem. Josie says, we're not going to charge Attilio, are we?
Well, he's saying it was an accident.
No one else was in the house. When Guildford rang up, they said it was a suicide attempt.
I'm inclined to accept their word.
Josie says, if a man could do that to his own father, it's going to mess with his head, and it takes a messed-up head to turn a gun on yourself.
Staffe slows the car right down as they pass the crooked billet. Out front, 3 men are huddled by the door, smoking. They stare into the car as it glides towards them, and Staffe winds down the window, waves to the men, and the men wave back. He says, How did you get on with looking into Maurizio Verdetti?
Seems his death was an accident, all right. Caught under stampeding police horses and trampled to a pulp, according to the hospital records. Not that they're much to go by.
No post-mortem?
One line about the circumstances. I guess it was a busy day.
And what about other deaths that day?
Well, there were hundreds, sir. You'd have to know what you were looking for.
David Myers, Abe's brother.
There was no David Myers in any of the registers for all the London boroughs, and I checked the following 2 days as well.
Staffe pulls into Ockingham Manor. Maybe we need to look further afield.
Should I mention it to Rimmer?
Rimmer? He looks up at Ockingham Manor. Maybe I got him wrong. Why not? And with that, the front door of the manor opens, and out walks Frank Rimmer, waving. Staffe puts on his rubber gloves and lifts up the Mossberg shotgun, looking closely at the end of the barrel. He smells it, says to Helena, I bet there's traces of Attilio's saliva. Helena's forehead wrinkles. We've told you it was an accident. Rimmer says, We've got the audio from emergency services. He reads from a small notebook. You said, My husband has shot himself. He's alive, but we need help. It's his ear. My God, I don't know what made him. It sounds as if you thought it was a deliberate act by him. I was distressed. Staffe says, There's a thumbprint on the trigger. You only leave a thumbprint if you turn the gun on yourself. Helena kneels in front of Attilio, strokes his face tenderly. You can see that she has loved him, that it has not quite all turned to hatred, and Staffe thinks perhaps he might have misjudged her, that she is simply the victim of an irrepressible urge for pastures new, eager to secure her corner of England too. Attilio says to her, I love you. He is unabashed.
ignoring the fact that the room has 3 police officers in it. Helena Ballantyne rests her head on Attilio's knee and curls both arms around his leg. Staffe says, "I'm afraid I need to know about Maurizio." "No!" shouts Attilio, surprising himself, his eyes wide as a munch. "I don't know anything, not a thing." Staffe crouches beside Helena, says, "Your father arrived in London 2 weeks before the Battle of Cable Street. Maurizio died on the day of the battle." Attilio shakes his head, mumbles, "No." "Inspector, leave him," says Helena. "We need the truth if we're going to find Carmelo. If you are lying to me, Attilio, I can only assume it is because you don't want your father found." Rimmer says, "I've heard enough." He holds up a clutch of evidence bags with swabs and prints inside. "Carmelo Trapani was here. We have the proof." I don't know how those prints got there." Helena says, "Carmelo was here a week before he disappeared to discuss the future of the estate. I invited him." "You didn't tell me," says Attilio. Helena Ballantyne releases the hold she has on her husband. Her face becomes softer and she says, "I'm sorry, darling." She looks at Staffe, then Rimmer, and back to her husband as the uniformed officer goes towards him. The officer handcuffs Attilio. She follows Attilio as he is led out of the room by Rimmer, who simply cannot stop a broad smile spreading across his face. He gives Staffe a look that says, "I told you." But Helena stops at the door, lets Attilio go, and Staffe says, "You spoke to Carmelo, but dealt with Aby." "What are you talking about?" "Just thinking aloud, trying to make it all add up." He looks around the room, furnished by the books of her prior husband. 31. As they drive past the Crooked Billet, Josie says, "I don't mind if you want a drink. It's been a weird day and I know I won't sleep." "You're worried about the Commissioner tomorrow. We'll be okay." He pats her on the leg and turns hard into the car park. Sees the butcher's bike leant up against the back wall. "Just a quick one, then." Inside, a group of young lads and 2 girls sit in the back room, laughing and joking, playing darts. Most have mud-spattered breeches, and Staffe guesses they'll be from the Ockingham estate. Rodney seems happy enough to see Staffe, and has clearly had a few already. "We heard the ambulance," he says. "All kinds of rumours flying around. Now you're here, so I suppose it's true." As Josie takes a seat by the fire, her phone beeps with text. "You can tell me," says Rodney in a stage whisper, laughing but not joking. "Has Attilio had a pop at her?" "No, nothing of the sort." "I knew something was up. He came in at tea time and shoved me a few hundred, said to treat the lads and lasses." "Maybe he was just being generous." Staffe joins Josie, who is reading her mobile. He wonders if it's Connor. Her eyes are soft and glassy in the fireglow. "Jom's texted me," she says. "Pulford's been kicking up a stink, demanding to see the governor." "He's changing his mind? He's not going to do a deal." "No, it's not that. It's about some bloke called Sabini. Here." She hands Staffe the phone. "Pulford kicked a stink plus governor at #1 called. Says Myers killed by razor in Brighton, 1936. Supposed to be Sabini, but not. Make sense?"
Myers, says Staffe, reading the message. Josie's previous text is from Con. Staffe can't help seeing the first line, "Can't we give it one more go?" He hands her the handset. David Myers? This whole thing goes back to Cable Street. Poor Pulford, she says. What an idiot I was, holding that gun. You've been a good friend and you tried too hard. That's no crime. They sit together while Staffe finishes his pint, and Josie pulls a small package from her pocket, slides it across the table, saying, I worry about you. What's this? He removes the outer packaging, which is in brown vinegar paper, revealing a velvet jewellery box. He opens it, pulls the watch out. A watch? A heart monitor. You wear it on your wrist. You used to run all the time. She pats his tummy. Time you took more care of yourself. It tells the time, too. He laughs, putting the device on his wrist, going for a fresh pint. She fusses the pub dog, who rolls on his back so she can tickle his tummy. When Staffe returns, she says, We should have someone to love, shouldn't we? Staffe hitches his stool a little closer. I can't keep a boyfriend. All I have is this damn job, and now that's blowing up in my face. Every year I see less and less of my friends. God knows I'll never have a child at this rate. You will. He puts his hand on her shoulder. What about you? How do you feel about that? The chance you might never have children. He rubs the nape of her neck, says, You'll be a wonderful mother. Their faces slowly come together. He closes his eyes, feels her lips softly against his. She opens her mouth ever so slightly and says, You love her still. Staffe opens his eyes. Josie's eyes are large and green. She blinks. I don't, he says. There's something there. Josie presses her face against his, and she kisses him on the mouth. He moves closer, but she leans away. We can't do this. There is something, I can tell. Having a baby is what she wants. Not for us to be together, but to have a child. Josie stands, picking up the car keys. When were you going to tell me? I just did. Maurice Green walks past the bandstand as a lone skater boy clatters the boards above the shingled beach. The pier lights still twinkle as he turns up into Brunswick Square. All yesterday the police were up and down the prom, from Marine Parade to the Brunswick lawns. He kept an eye on them as they searched for him. Now they've gone, and Brighton is the safest place to be, but he can't stay here. The city beckons, and the end of the line is almost here. The evidence is all in. Almost. He checks his watch and walks briskly towards the station, dreading the prospect of the last train and its revellers. He feels the absence of Tatiana as if it is an illness. It makes him doubt the wisdom of what he's got himself into, what he must do tonight. When he gets up to the top of the town, drunken groups spill onto the station concourse. Maurice pretends he's gazing down towards the pastel terraces of Hanover. But, using the full periphery of his vision, he's checking whether he's being followed. Once he is in the melee of the station, and in line for the last train, Maurice glances at his phone. But Tatiana hasn't called, and he can't help thinking that something has gone wrong. He can't call her. He absolutely cannot call her. He pauses in the queue for the gate, stops shuffling forward and pulls up Tatiana from his recent calls, and his finger hovers on green. His heart drums,
and Morris checks around him again, turning off the phone, denying himself.
"Come on, fella! We want to catch this fucker!"
The man behind him, oozing fumes of alcohol, slaps Morris on the shoulder. Morris trousers his phone and turns around, tells the man to take his fucking hand off him. The man's eyes widen, and he looks Morris up and down, trying to reconcile the appearance of him with the words he has uttered. The drunken man is taller and broader than Morris, and he lifts an arm, but Morris acts swiftly, flicking the man in the throat, watching him crumple to the ground. As the man's girlfriend kneels over him, Morris shares a joke with the ticket collector about day-tripping drunkards, all the time looking into the crowd, picking out the faces. He does it all the way to London. The train slows into London Bridge, and Morris peers up at block after apartment block, lit up and soaring all the way to the sky. Lives unseen. The journey on the Underground is swift and quiet, and by the time he gets to Highbury, Morris's carriage is empty, bar a medium-height, medium-built, slender white man. Morris takes note of his lightweight gabardine, the collar of a Prince of Wales check suit jacket showing. The man in the gabardine gets off, and this is Morris's stop. He watches the man pause at an exit, messing with his phone before going into the passage marked Way Out. Morris takes a different exit and goes a long way round. As he goes through the ticket barrier, putting the Oyster card to its pad, he has a feeling of being watched, but the ticket hall is empty. Outside, he gives a tramp his Oyster card, wondering if it is possible to trace a person's movements from such a thing. He must tell Tatiana to pay as she goes. Morris turns the wrong way, walking briskly, switchbacking all the way to Canonbury, assuring himself that he most definitely has not been followed. He uses the call box to phone Tatiana, and he lets it ring 4 times. Then he hangs up and waits for 2 minutes before calling again. When this happens, Tatiana is supposed to either pick up on the first ring, if everything is hunky-dory, or she is supposed to have turned off her phone altogether. But as it is, when Morris calls a second time, the phone just rings and rings and rings all the way to message service. Something is wrong. Morris walks along the New River Walk, deep into a darkening hush. The trees are big, and in this small lung of the city, night animals scratch and scuttle. He looks up at the big house at the end of its cul-de-sac. All the lights are off, and he waits for 10 minutes, and not a soul comes by. He taps the code into the keypad and pushes the door open. He goes straight up and doubles back on himself, crouching down in a dark corner of the half-landing. From here, as his eyes adjust to the dark, he can discern the dimmest light coming from the Yale-locked door, a small glow in the gap at the bottom. Morris waits and waits, and waits some more. His stomach rumbles. He needs to eat something. Eventually he stands, prepares himself to go in, but he hears something below. Wood is splintering, and he thinks it must be the front door, so he hunkers back down, coiled, every muscle in his body taut, expectant. Blood surges through his body as steps climb slowly through the building. He sees the arm of the gabardine coat at the far end of the banister by the newel post. Morris wraps his hand around his keys, making a fist, but placing the sharp Yale between his index and middle finger. He takes a run-up and leaps at the man, screams, and his target turns, open-eyed. The man raises an arm and tries to take a step back, but Morris is too fast, uncoiling every sinew and focusing solely on thrusting, jabbing his fist at the left eye of the man. Morris feels the resistance and hears the sharp end of his Yale key ripping the skin between the bridge of the man's nose and the corner of his eye. The face is familiar now, and the man is no threat. Morris withdraws a half-step and watches Miles Hennigan fall to his knees. Morris crouches, checks the cut and says, "Shit. I'm sorry, Miles. That's bad." "What the fuck are you doing?" "You followed me." "I'm making sure they're not following you." "You're wearing gabardine." "What the fuck?" Blood seeps through Miles's fingers, his hand clasped to the eye. "Abe is on your case. He doesn't know where you stand." "Why break the door?" "You wouldn't give me the code, remember? And you were in here 20 minutes and no light came on." Morris wipes the Yale key on Miles's gabardine and lets himself in, going straight to the temporary kitchenette, removing a plate of brassaola with cling film over the top of it. He counts the slices, knows Tatiana has been, and he cuts 2 slices of bread from the stale loaf in the cupboard, takes it through with a bottle of Sangiovese. Opening the door to the dimly lit room, the television gloams silently, and Carmelo looks over the top of his pince-nez glasses. From the clean smell of him, Morris knows Tatiana has definitely been. Looking at the blood that stains the perimeter of the dressing she has taped over his mouth, he has come just in time. Things are getting worse. Gently, Morris removes the tape and dressing and calls Miles Hennigan to bring some water. Hennigan calls back that he can't fucking see properly. But Morris concentrates on Carmelo, who says, dry as sand with the last drop his mouth can utter, "Is it tonight?" "Not tonight, Uncle." Carmelo groans. He tries to swallow, and Morris pours him a glass of Sangiovese, which he sips cautiously. Eventually he musters, "Pity me. Pity a dying man's soul." "Pity doesn't come into it, Uncle. It never did." 32. Commissioner Beverly Strong is a tiny woman, but even so, Staffe, Pennington and Josie visibly clench in her presence, each sitting forward in their seats. She hands out a document. "It's code black," she says, leaning back. "Take a minute to digest." The report makes grim reading, outlining the latest intelligence regarding the simmering unrest surrounding the murder of Jadis Golding. "Of course, we could be in there like that." Beverly Strong clicks her fingers. "If I gave the nod. But we're already distrusted in our community, even though we're straining every sinew to save it from itself. This is the status quo. We run to stand still. So you will understand my loathing of surprise, especially surprises from within." She gives Pennington a long, withering look and puckers her mouth. Pennington addresses Staffe and Josie, says, "I can't tell you how grave this matter has become, and I want you to know, before I even get started, that neither of you will go within a country mile of Jasmine Cash or Brandon Latimer. If you see them in Tesco's, I expect you to drop your bastard baskets and run for the door." Beverly Strong says, "Part of the problem is you've allowed yourself to become so inextricably entwined with D.S. Pulford's fate." Pennington sips from his glass of water. "Perhaps I was too optimistic in thinking we could get to the bottom of this." Staffe and Pennington exchange a long look, in which they each acknowledge that it was Pennington who brought Staffe back from Spain to help clear Pulford. Within the taut silence, Staffe nods, and his chief inspector closes his eyes, slowly, respecting the fact that he is not going to be dropped in it by his subordinate. Josie says, "We can't sell D.S. Pulford down the river, sir." "If I may warn you, D.C. Chancellor," says the Commissioner, "your interventions so far have hardly helped Sergeant Pulford. We now have a murder weapon which the Crown will prove to have been in your possession." "I can explain, ma'am." "I hope you can. But the fact is, there's not a centimetre for error here, do you understand? Not a twitch from either of you.
Pennington says, almost mechanically, "We fully accept your version, Chancellor, that Louis Considine entrapped you. But Considine cannot be found, and we have to accept he won't be found. In fact, it might be better if he isn't found. You know what's saving your bacon, Chancellor?" says Pennington.
No, sir.
"The fact that Louis Considine has done a runner. That will help Pulford when he cuts his deal."
End of Disc 6.